To call back. I'd like to call back to order the April 9th board meeting of the Sac City Unified School Board. We would start with item 4.0, Pledge of Allegiance, led by the C.K. McClatchy High School, Northern California Division I champion Lady Lions women's basketball team. Anytime you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you please stay there? Member Hanson.
I'm the lucky board member who gets to represent McClatchy, so I've gotten a chance to see several of your games the last couple of years, so obviously super exciting. I thought I'd do something special before we get to the main event, and I know that there's someone that we're going to do a little birthday celebration for. Maybe we'd like to sing a song and invite Principal Lambert, who's come here on his birthday. So maybe I can ask my fellow board members and the audience to join me in singing Happy Birthday. Yeah. You ready? And a 1 and a 2 and a 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Member Peter. Happy birthday to you.
He's got some treats to share, so if you like some. And that's a good segue, because when I was at the game at Berkeley, we were talking, and he said his birthday was coming up. I said, "What do you want for your birthday?" He goes, "I want to win this game and have a championship." And you know what? It happened. So that was perfect. So he got his birthday wish. And I'll tell you, the city of Sacramento did too, because everybody is so super proud to see you on the front page of the Sacramento Bee the next day. That was awesome. My friends that I talked to that watched the game, because it was broadcast in so many places around Sacramento, and they said they'd been watching NCAA games all day long, and yours was the most exciting one out of all. So how about that? And being there in person, it was super exciting, watching the ball bounce on the rim like 5 times before it finally went in, and all the rest of that. It was an amazing game. I totally loved it. So tonight, it is with great pride that we honor the 2015 California State champion Lady Lions basketball team from C.K. McClatchy High School. The Lady Lions are the first girls team in Sacramento City unified history, that's 160 years, to win a state championship. And you'll always be first from now on, because you're the first. They're the first team to win this state championship. These young women have accomplished something amazing with their record-breaking season. The Lady Lions finished as champions of the Metro League with an undefeated record of 14-0. And they went on with an impressive 27-7 record. During the Division I state championship games, the Lions defeated 4 powerhouse teams to capture the title. They beat Davis High School 77-54, then Pittsburgh High 54-25, then Oak Ridge High 58-49, and finally captured the state title with an exciting 65-61 double overtime win over Sarah High of Gardena. In the days following their state championship victory, junior Gigi Garcia was named Sac B Player of the Year. Lauren Nubla became second team Sac B All-City. Jordan Cruz was named third team Sac B All-City. And Destiny Lee, Christy Wong, Kelsey Wong, and Alexandria Washington were given Sac B All-City honorable mentions. On behalf of the Board of Education, we're very proud to present the California State champion C.K. McClatchy girls basketball team as our stellar students. Congratulations.
You have the floor.
You'd like to say something, and then I've got some certificates for you. Maybe a team leader or our great
about
coach,
coach?
On behalf of the McClatchy Lions girls basketball team, we want to thank the district for having us here and honoring us, for the administration for supporting us, the school for supporting us, and everyone here that has supported us throughout this journey. It's been a great ride, and we're really glad that we can represent the district because it just makes it that much more memorable for us.
Rita? Lauren? Kelsey? Coach? This is the principal. Peter.
Yeah, you can't wait. They want to see what's in the box.
Oh my God.
Because wait.
Come on in.
Stay up here. He's got the certificate in the way.
All right.
Wait. I think we would all like to come down. My colleagues and I would like to join you because you guys are bigger celebrities than we'll ever be.
You are celebrities.
Oh, they want to get a picture.
Yeah. No, we're coming down here.
Oh, yeah. Girls, short ones.
How good they are.
Member Royal.
Thank you, President Wu. It suffices to say, I mean, everyone is so very proud of the work that you have done. But what I really wanted to highlight is it's just yet another example, it's another testament to the type of excellence that is going on in Sacramento City Unified School District. There's so much talent, within the district, and it's so awesome to have you guys be part of, the family of Sacramento City Unified School District. I mean, obviously, you make us so proud, representing us in a statewide championship like this. Just thank you for your hard work. And like I've mentioned to other students, please, don't forget to mentor your fellow peers, especially the ones that are coming up. They do look up to you. You may not think so, but you already are role models. And, don't walk away from it, own it, and just realize that there are many, many, many students that are looking up to you. And it's that type of idea that engenders that kind of culture and excellence within the district. And so thank you for your hard work, and wish you the best of luck in anything and everything else you do.
And are two of you graduating? 4 of you are graduating, so there's still the majority of the team will still be intact. So we're looking forward to great things in the coming years. And let me let you know that we're so confident that you were going to win that we put you on the agenda before the game because we knew in our heart of hearts that you would make us proud. So continue as you go forward in life to continue to do good things. I think I echo Member Arroyo's comments, and people do look up to you, and you have responsibility now. So go forth and do well. Thank you.
One last thing, I just wanted to mention there's the parade tomorrow for those folks who are watching, because we have a lot of people watching on TV. There's you can join us starting at 12, and I think the parade starts at 12:30. So that'll be a lot of fun too. And we've got, I think, 3,000 or so hot dogs got delivered today, courtesy of Dr. Pan and Jay Hansen. So we'll look forward to some hot dogs too tomorrow.
Thank you, Member Hansen. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption, with the exception of technical problems, on Metro Cable 14, the government affairs channel on the Comcast and ShoreWest cable systems. Today's meeting will air Sunday, April 12th at 9 a.m. and Monday, April 13th at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the community room in the back and provide it to our Chief Communications Officer, Mr. Ross, prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Responses to questions by the public will be posted on the district's website prior to the next board meeting. Please limit comment during public comment to items not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is not on the agenda, you will be asked to defer until the item comes up during the agenda. Please turn off all your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5.0, announcements of actions taken in closed session.
None, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? I have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7.0, special presentation. 7.1, Jamba Juice. Gen Youth Foundation Garden Grant. Ms. Allen.
Thank you. Good evening, President Wu and Superintendent Bonham, members of the board. Always fun to bring an item to the board where it involves money coming our way. I'd like to ask Alyssa McClellan to come on up. So we had a unique opportunity to partner with Jamba Juice and Gen Youth and another organization called Fuel Up to Play 60. They chose Sac City Unified as a recipient of a grant. So I'm going to let Alyssa talk a little bit more about it and then ask you to come down for another photo op. You don't get to photobomb yourself.
Did I get caught?
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm representing Jamba Juice and the Gen Youth Foundation, and together we are bringing Sacramento City Unified School District $36,000 to put towards your school garden initiative. And we know that you guys are already doing great things. That's why Sacramento City was chosen. And the money is to be put towards expanding your existing gardens and then starting up some school gardens that at your campuses that don't already have that in place, and then expanding that nutrition education piece to your students and then into the community. So we are so excited to be partnering with you guys today, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you so much. Picture time?
For picture, yeah. We've actually put this money to good use already. The garden symposium that was held at the Met not too long ago, we utilized some of the funds from this to allow some of the teachers to attend and learn more about the gardening that's going on. So it's already been put to good use.
Item 8.0, public comment. Mr. Ross.
We have 3 comments on 8.0 from Angela Brereton, I believe. Close enough. Terrence Gladney and Dave Ross.
Good evening. My name is Angela Brereton. I'm an Area 1 resident. I have 3 children. I'm a working mom. My 2 older children attend Crocker Riverside Elementary School. My youngest will turn 5 in October, so she qualifies for early kinder program. However, Sac City Unified School District Area 1 does not have an early kinder program. The closest schools to me are Leonardo da Vinci, Alice Burney, and Theodore Judah. My daughter is on the wait list for Leonardo da Vinci and for Theodore Judah. I received notice that she is 11th on the wait list for Leonardo da Vinci, which means she will not get in there. I have not received word from Theodore Judah. If my daughter does get into Theodore Judah, it will add at least 30 minutes to my commute every morning. I live near downtown, I work in downtown, and yet I will have to go 5 miles out of my way every day to take her to a school that is not in my area. There's significant need for an Area 1 early kinder program, as you can see by the number of kids who are left on the wait list. Crocker Riverside, I know, because it's my neighborhood school, has enough space to include an early kinder program. It would be similar to the Leonardo da Vinci program, where it would be an afternoon program. But there's also, on the grounds, there's a 4th R program available. So the children who are from working families would be able to have before and after school care. Mr. McCord, the principal at Crocker Riverside, is also very supportive of this, as well as the PTA. I've been in contact with Mr. Hansen as well, and he is also very supportive. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Mr. Wu, would we just briefly address that? I thank you, Angela, for coming and presenting this information to us. I think it's very important, and I think it was very surprising to me that out of all the 7 trustee areas, only 1 didn't have an early kinder program. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, along with your other folks at the PTA, and I appreciate staff putting together this information for me. So just being illustrative of a need for my area. So I hope and expect that we can have this as part of the budget for next year, so we can have this program starting in September. And the principal has offered at Crocker Riverside to host this program at his school. And so I'll look forward to working with staff and the community on getting this program going this upcoming school year. So thank you again for taking the time to come out tonight.
Thank you, Member Hansen. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Wu. I really want to express my appreciation for our public commenter today and Vice President Hansen for bringing this data to us, and also a little background on why these early kinder programs are at these particular schools is because there's a great need for preschool early kindergarten in our low-income disadvantaged areas, and that's the reason why we have those programs. They were meant for pilot to see if, one, we could run a program effectively, and two, if we can afford it as well. So it's something that this board has been in continuous discussion about, because we do want to educate the whole child, and the sooner we get them, the better. And so I think that we can do better. I think that we can expand on this conversation beyond the TK and with some of the changes in the current climate that we're experiencing. I also want to be sure that we include in this conversation a study of our facilities to make sure that we have the facility space, and if not, how can we then take a look at what our vacant buildings are and look to see what we can do in terms of
decreasing class sizes, including TK, and then taking another look at our kindergarten so that we can have a more comprehensive program. So I hope I get your support on that too, Vice President Hansen. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Mr. Gladney? What shirt is that?
I grew up in the Bay Area. Superintendent Bondo was asking me the same thing. He's like, "Are you on the bandwagon?" I'm like, "No." It's like, well, I'm a 49ers fan, so I can say this, but it's like a Raiders fan. If they have a good year, they're going to celebrate it. So, I don't know when this is going to happen again. And I grew up in the Bay Area, but the Raiders were in LA when I was growing up. So I'm a 49ers fan. They were winning, and they were there. Terrence Gladney, I'm actually here tonight to say thank you. Word around campus at Kennedy is that the time equipment that I've been advocating for has been purchased, and I'm not here to say thank you because I got what I asked for. I'm here to say thank you because the families and the children got what they need. And I mean, I think that says enough. Thank you. I mean, however it happened, thank you. But I also want to take the opportunity to recognize, McClatchy girls team. It might seem blasphemous to some people at Kennedy, but again, they're all our kids, and I mean, they've done great work. And I think that, what they've done in today's climate with public schools versus private schools and how that looks in athletics is even more astounding. And I think it speaks to kind of bring this all together, it speaks to what can happen when we really elevate the whole child and around facilities and athletics. A lot of kids will go to a private or a charter school because it offers them athletic opportunities, which is going to equate to savings for their parents if they, are able to secure athletic scholarships, but also just to have access to, top-notch facilities. And their work is what got them there, but, it's a legacy at McClatchy with Coach Tahara and obviously their current coaches from that coaching tree, Marty Tateshi, who's a sixth grader over at Cabrillo. He coached at Intercom for a while. He's part of that coaching tree. But I think that it's also aligned with the fact that they have, a renovated facility they can be proud of and take ownership in, and build that into something special for years to come. So when all those things are brought together, then our children really can thrive. It takes a lot more than talent. We do have a lot of talented kids, but they need sometimes a little bit of an extra push because of the challenges that they face. So, if we all do come together in whatever capacity, we can disagree, but as long as we keep our eyes focused on the kids and great things like that, we'll continue to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. Are you happy it snowed Tuesday?
We got about a foot up there. Well, actually 2 feet at 9,000. Anybody want to go skiing?
I think it's melted by now.
Yeah, it's already starting to go. Good evening, Board. My name is Dave Ross, and I'm representing the Making Sense Work and Community Priority Coalition. And Karen Sweat and Bob Hamas, my partners, couldn't be here tonight, so they've asked me to read a prepared statement. So you have to forgive me for not being a little bit more formal. 2 weeks ago, my partners Karen Sweat and Bob Hamas reminded you of a 2014 board meeting executive summary, which included the following steps. Implement a new budget system and develop a process that addresses significant additional community involvement. Then Bob Hamas presented the coalition's second interim in less than 2 minutes. Not bad. He told you that we would be getting in touch with each of you to provide some corrections to that and to set up meetings for further conversations and options. We'll continue our effort to meet with each of you individually in the near future. Karen and Bob also want you to know that they had a follow-up meeting with Gerardo and Mike. I couldn't be there because I was still skiing in Europe, and are ever more hopeful that there will be significant community involvement in the fiscal year 15-16 budget development process. Tonight, I've brought a Ed Week article for each of you. It's about a paradigm shift in the budget development process that is starting up around the country. In that we've been budget watchers for the past 10 years. We know that with the new budget management team, Gerardo and Mike, we have a golden opportunity for creating a truly student-centered budget, and we hope that this is accomplished with significant community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
End of formal presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Moving on to item 9, consent agenda. We hear a motion to move the consent agenda. I have a motion and a second from Hanson and Arroyo. And you take your pick which one you want first, and second. All those in favor of moving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, communications. 10.1, employee organization reports. First one, CSA. Second one, SCTA. Apologies for making you get up and then sit down and then get up again. Welcome, Nikki.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Bonda. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I'm happy to say that today is a day that was previously scheduled for us to be at a PERB hearing, and I'm very happy that we're here today to talk about much more constructive things. We're not talking about the healthcare changes, and we're talking about something much more important, like class size reduction. Yesterday, SCTA had the opportunity to make a presentation to the LCAP committee, and it was a very good conversation. We identified our highest priorities: class size reduction, successful implementation of relevant and meaningful professional development, and early intervention programs. We pointed out that class size reduction is something that virtually everyone, teachers, parents, administrators, school board members, and the broader community agrees upon. Lower class sizes create a better and more conducive learning environment for our students. Study after study has demonstrated that the benefits of smaller class sizes: parents are more involved and more apt to volunteer, students are less disruptive, student test scores improve, particularly among the poor and minority students. Money saved from higher class sizes often end up costing the district much more in the future, in the long run. We find that retention rates of teachers are improved, teacher migration from poorer school districts to more fluent districts decrease, and more people are drawn to the teaching profession. Since 2009, even in the face of drastic budget cuts and slight declines in enrollment, the district has increased the amount of resources used to expand the administrative personnel, priorities of the past administrations. In contrast, in the same time period, class sizes have increased, schools have been closed, and other questionable decisions have been made under the veil of fiscal responsibility. Comparing recent data among 13 large and mostly analogous school districts in California in terms of student enrollment makes the point more clearly. While the total amount of Sac City USD budget spent on administrator salaries as a percentage of the total expenditures ranks 5th out of these 13, the money spent on certificated teacher salaries ranks 12th of the same 13. This needs to change. Class size reduction, not an agenda to address an exaggerated financial situation, should be the highest priorities of stakeholders in this district. We believe that discussion should focus not just on the additional resources that are coming to the district from the state, but in some cases the reallocation of resources that we believe could be better spent that are already here in our district. From our perspective, there's no higher priority, and there's no single place that money could be better spent than on improving the learning environment of today's Sac City students. Our next step is to convene with the district a joint SCTA Sac City USD class size reduction committee to discuss constructively how we accomplish our collective goal. We expect our first meeting to be held this month, and we hope that this board will provide the encouragement and direction to make this shared goal our highest priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. SEIU?
Good evening, President Wu, Superintendent Bonda, board members. My name is Ian Arnold, representing SEIU Local 1021, representing your classified employees. I'm here to actually thank the board, the superintendent, the current HR, whatever the new title is, Human Resources Chief, and your Labor Relations Director. We've actually, last time I was here, we had an issue we were trying to get resolved around laid off employees and the district hiring folks off the street rather than bringing people in who were already on the layoff list. I'm pleased to say that we were able to reach an agreement on that. working collaboratively, so I'm very pleased about that. Additionally, in about 2 weeks, we were supposed to be at PERB for an unfair labor practice charge hearing, and we've been able to resolve that through being able to communicate with each other and work things out. And lastly, I'd like to thank the board and the superintendent for making the Cerna Center available to us for this Saturday, when classified employees from all over Northern California will be here for an 8-hour training. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Teamsters. UPE. Moving on to item 10.2, District Parent Advisory Committees. Community Advisory Committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angie Sutherland, and I'm the chair of the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education. And I just wanted to announce our upcoming workshop, which is next Tuesday night. It's a transition planning workshop for students with disabilities. And what transition planning is a student's movement from school to post-school activities. And it includes things like college and vocational training and employment, continuing in adult education, adult services, independent living, and community participation. So the planning happens with the individualized education plan, which is the IEP, and that happens for a student at age 16 or earlier if it's appropriate for the student. So it's really an important part of a student's planning process is to make sure that they have those adequate plans in place and the skills that they need for that when they finish high school. And so the workshop is from 6:30 to 8:30, and we'd like to invite all of you to come out in the community. Parents, teachers, administrators, and everyone is welcome. And then our meeting is on April 28th from 6:30 to 8:30. And we have planned a special topic of discussing special education services. So our SELPA director will be going over what those are. And we will also nominate officers for the next term of officers. So thank you so much, and just hope that some of you will be able to make it to our workshop and our meeting. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. District Advisory Council. District English Learner Advisory Committee. The Gifted and Talented Education Advisory Committee. Sacramento Council of Parent-Teacher Association. Mr. Gladney, should I say it again? What's that shirt?
Let's not go there. Terrence Gladney, President, Sacramento Council PTA. I think it was a couple months, maybe 3 months or so ago, I met with the Research and Data Department because they wanted to get my input on my knowledge of the existing parent groups across the district, because I don't think that there is that knowledge at the district level. So what I did was impart my knowledge about our existing PTAs, share some insight as to why certain schools may, had a PTA before and don't have a PTA now, and just generally what that landscape looks like. How it's manifesting itself right now with the LCAP and everything else going on, I attended the State Board of Education meeting as well as West Ed's rubric input session recently. And one of the things that is concerning is that the state or the recommendation, I believe, from West Ed as part of the rubric is that local school districts will determine which metrics measure their parent engagement. And I look at our own district, and we don't even know which schools have a PTA or PTO or PTC or any sort of parent group. And although I'm given the PTA report, we believe in, a school or a community or a parent's ability to decide what group exists at their school site. But the things that we stand behind are fiscal responsibility and accountability, things like having 2 check signers on an account. And I think that those are some things that we can impart regardless of what the title of a parent group at a school is. And I think that collaboratively, we with the record that we have of advocating for all children can be partners to the district in developing that. And I think that we can also then become leaders across the state in driving what that rubric and what those requirements look like. I just hope that, that's something that our path takes us down together, because it is important that, parents feel a part of not only the school community as a whole, but whatever parent group is there. And if we don't have any sort of baseline or metric or threshold for what that process looks like, it's very easy for some parents to feel excluded because of, different patterns or habits that come about. So we again offer our service in that capacity. For us, it's also a challenge. We right now, as we look to our existing PTA schools, we're having a problem finding leaders because there's such a need at the school site to hold on to those strong parent leaders because they've been developed in whatever capacity. Either it's because they're trusted by their communities, and that's understandable. So we are having a problem finding leaders to continue forth, at our council level. So we ask the public, of parents, community to please offer whatever resources you have to assist us. We are having our election and general meeting on the 18th, and we hope to make it a community event, and we invite you all, and we continue to work with you guys. The 18th of May, I'm sorry. Yes, May 18th, and it will be our election meeting and general meeting. So we hope to do some community awards and say a lot of thank yous because we have done a lot of work with limited board staff. We don't have that many people on our board, but we've had a lot of partners, including the district. So we do want to say thank you to a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. Moving on to item 10.3, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent?
Thank you, Board President Wu. Today I had the pleasure of attending a press conference at the Capitol with 20 California middle school students and their teacher, Mafe Aguilar, and Principal Andrea Egan. These students participate in a program that's called Girls Who Code, which inspires young women to learn computing skills so they can pursue 21st century opportunities. The goal of Girls Who Code is to prepare 1 million young women across the country to fill high-paying, high-tech jobs by the year 2020. The program launched in New York City in 2012, and it's expanded to 5 cities. Sacramento is lucky to be among one of those 5. This is a very important work because there's a huge gender disparity in math and science-related job sectors. In middle school, 74% of the girls express an interest in science, math, engineering, and technology. But when choosing a college career, less than 1% of high school girls select a computer science career. And only 15% of engineers in California's workforce are women. Today's event was focused on a resolution that would designate April 5th through April 11th as California Women and Girls in STEM Week. I was very proud of how well our students and Ms. Aguilar and Ms. Egan represented our district today. Of course, there's a lot more work to be done to break down the barriers that prevent girls and young women from pursuing these lucrative job fields. But I think we've got off to a good start on raising the awareness of this issue today. I also wanted to bring you up to date on the work going on with Caleb Greenwood and Kit Carson to establish an international baccalaureate track in East Sacramento. As you recall, this work was the result of design teams that the board established at both schools in the year 2012. On March 23rd and 24th, an international verification team from IB, International Baccalaureate, visited Caleb Greenwood, which is going for authorization as an International Baccalaureate primary years program. I was very impressed with how well the school prepared for this visit. The team complimented the school for the many things, amongst those including the units that the teachers had written and were currently teaching. As a result of this curriculum and the instruction, the students were able to articulate what it means to be a world student. They exhibited the characteristics that is typical of IB learners. The team also enjoyed visiting with Caleb parents who were very enthusiastic. Been out to Caleb a couple times to really see the transformation that's happened at that school, all around this notion of International Baccalaureate, but really it's been the whole idea of having parents become such an important part of that community. They're probably the biggest fans that we have, not only for the school, but for making sure that we are able to implement an IB program. Team members said they were also impressed by the tremendous buy-in and the grassroots nature of the IB implementation. Parents and community members are fully committed, and that was very obvious during their time on site. We should hear the official word from the team on authorization in 6 to 8 weeks, but in interviewing with them, I I got the sense that we're in really good stead there. Kit Carson, meanwhile, will be going through the same process next spring as they go for authorization in the IB Middle Years program, which is 7th through 10th grades. They are finalizing their units and working with SCTA to create the 7-period day, which is requirement of IB. Kit Carson also recently submitted an application to be an IB diploma program, which is an 11th and 12th grade program. If all goes well and according to plan, the diploma program will be in place when this year's 9th graders enter the 11th grade. It's going to be a busy couple of years at Kit Carson as they gear up for IB implementation. But it's also very exciting work, and I know that there's dedication to getting it done and getting it done right. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 10.4, President's Report. Me. Several weeks ago, Vice President Christina Pritchett and myself along with the superintendent, attended the Great City Schools Legislative Conference, where we were educated on, and we got audiences with our congresspersons locally, Congressman Ami Bera, Congresswoman Doris Matsui, and we were there to educate them on the importance of education funding and the ongoing congressional consideration of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, commonly known as ESA, and its reauthorization. In speaking with Congressman Bera, he shared with us that just reauthorization alone would be seen as a victory. We asked for additional considerations such as 1.7% cost of living adjustment, but even just the reauthorization in its current form would be a major victory for our children, our Title I children. Other parts of Congress are contemplating allowing the states to take the money that is earned by the states for their Title I children and then dividing it, allowing them to divide up that money for all children across the state. So this is some factions in Congress's opportunity to get the money into the hands of private schools, which of course public schools adamantly oppose. So we were there to advocate on behalf of our children here in California, and hopefully Congress will reauthorize ESA or H.R. 5. On Monday, the 23rd of this month, I'd like to congratulate Assistant Superintendent, Area Superintendent Doug Hersher, who convened a meeting on restorative justice. I invite my colleagues to join us in future meetings on restorative justice because we're doing some very important work, and the committees are continuing to do very, very important work. Lastly, I wanted to let the public know that the Superintendent Evaluation Committee met to assess the progress and articulate goals to measure the superintendent's performance recently and articulate his performance moving forward. And in the coming months, we will be seeking input from stakeholder groups. So I asked the stakeholder groups to look forward to notification of input to us. And that concludes my report. Item 10.5, Student Member Report. Sami Saido.
Members of the board, President Wu and Superintendent Banda, over the weekend I was able to attend a METRA meeting over at Sac State with a few of my fellow students talking about ethnic studies. There were over 200 community members and students there participating in the event, and we were able to speak in front of them, and many of them came up and spoke to us as well. And I heard so many stories about how college students and people who are far beyond my own age, who were fighting and struggling to get an ethnic studies class implemented in their own district and schools when they were our age. Also, just earlier this week on Mondays, Member Hansen was able to come and have a meeting with our executive board and give us a feedback of the information that we presented to him during the meeting, which we got very great feedback. And I'd like to thank him for attending. Thank you very much for that. And we will be continue to prepare. Yeah, we'll be continue to be. We'll be.
Slow down.
We can add some time for you.
No, it's fine. I'm almost done. I only have one more sentence, anyways. But we will be continue to preparing for our presentation to the board on May 21st. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. 10.6, information sharing by board members. I don't see any lights on, but I will call. There we go. Ask and you shall see. Member Hanson.
Well, just a few things. One, I appreciate the invitation to come and address the student council leaders and hear about some of the proposals that they had. I know they're going to do a great job with a presentation to the board, so I'm looking forward to that. And I think my board members will enjoy it as well. Obviously, you know, an incredible success story, the McClatchy girls basketball team. That was just so fun, so special, and I think a testament to Title IX and the success of school districts supporting women's teams. That certainly would have never happened without the kind of commitment that people have made to that, and just such a remarkable story. And it was such a fun time going to the basketball game and being part of the celebrations there. That was just really extraordinary. I want to thank Councilmember Steve Hansen for hosting a meeting at Washington Elementary School, and SCTA for joining us. Dave was there with us, so thank you very much for being part of that as well in the presentation. I think there's a lot of momentum to work towards Washington Elementary School opening up. There's certainly the need in the coming years when we make that school a destination school with the number of folks who work in downtown Sacramento. I think that's really a great place that parents would want to send their children, with the huge enrollment increases that we're seeing at William Land Elementary School because of their Mandarin immersion program. Are adding a lot of students into our area down there, and I know that there were some great ideas that were generated from the public that were there. I appreciate the staff that came and took diligent notes that were there, and we've since held a meeting here at the district with my fellow board member Cochran and the superintendent and staff, and we're going to be working on next steps so we can make sure we get the right folks in there. You know, working with all of our partners, our labor partners, and the community, and making sure that we have a program ready to go and open up on time with the right folks there. So I'm glad that we're making the forward progress, and Councilmember Hansen bugs me about every week on this. So if he's listening or staff's paying attention, we're working on it. And then lastly, I've been working on a voter registration project with the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and we had a rollout of our program at the Met High School. We've had two great students there that were part of the program. They've designed an educational program that they presented to all the students in the school, class by class. There's a new law that allows 16 and 17-year-old students the right to vote. We had the county registrar was there, and we educated the whole school, and we registered 60 students that day. So it was really successful, a lot of fun, and I've been talking about it with some of the teachers at some of the other schools, and I think that'd be something we'd love to roll out and educate more students about their rights and responsibilities as full voting citizens when they turn 18. But starting early definitely is the right thing to do with the students. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Member Ryan.
Thank you, President Wu. I have a few updates. First, I wanted to share that I was fortunate enough to join Member Hansen a few weeks ago to speak at Sacramento City Council's meeting in support of the Fremont Studios project. I think you've heard me passionately advocate for the arts programs in the past as being transformative to young people's lives in our schools. I'm very happy to say that that project is moving forward, with the city providing a multi-million-dollar commitment to do the renovations necessary to open the Fremont Studios Arts Collaborative. For me, it's really about now making sure it's a meaningful partnership with Sacramento City Unified School District, and that in fact, both through our summer programs and our after-school programs, we are providing arts opportunities to our low-income youth in our schools, as we know so many of those programs have been decimated. I also was very fortunate to have a chance to speak at and participate in the Parent Exchange, Information Exchange monthly meeting on the topic of bullying prevention. As you know, I launched a Beyond Differences anti-bullying campaign and No One Eats Alone Day. And I will say, much to the credit of Sacramento City Unified School District staff, that Parent Information Exchange meeting was packed, and the parents were incredibly engaged, and I think left with a lot of questions around how they could better support their children in ensuring that they were not the victims of bullying, but also with a greater sense of the recourse they could take if they found themselves in a bad situation and where Sacramento City Unified could be of help. I had a chance to be part of the Food Literacy Festival to talk about our school gardens project, and I'm really happy to say that I've been having several meetings with city and county officials to talk about taking advantage of a USDA grant that would allow us some planning monies to really expand our school gardens in Sacramento City Unified School District, since we know that's so essential to building healthy communities. I was part of the LCAP community meeting, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Parent Advisory Committee members and the advocates from our local community groups that have dedicated countless hours to being a part of this process. As you know, it has been incredibly time-consuming and at times challenging beyond measure, but our Parent Advisory Committee have continued to stay the course, and I think are elevating the voices of Sacramento City Unified School District families in a very important way. And then our advocates who are being technical assistants and monitoring the process are really keeping us honest and making sure that we're striving to do better, because we can consistently throughout this process. I will say at the LCAP community meeting, I was sad that we didn't have greater participation. And so once again, the question becomes, how do we ensure that families understand that their voice matters in this process, and how do we demystify it enough so that we feel like we're not intimidated to participate in these conversations. I will echo what President Wu said. I also participated in the Restorative Justice Collaborative meeting. I'm very happy that our new Assistant Superintendent of Equity, Doug Hoosier, brought together the Restorative Justice Collaborative. It was our first meeting in about 3 months, and really I got the sense from individuals in the room that there is some sense of urgency around making sure that the school climate policies, the positive school climate policies, are actionable. And there was some discussion around creating work groups to make sure that this work continues to move in partnerships with our teachers and our community advocates. I also had a chance to organize what was for me a wonderful visit of Area 7 in Sacramento City Unified School District for a group of Stanford fellows who were on spring break. Thank you to Liz Guillen from Public Advocates for coming out and taking part of her busy schedule and her busy day to present to them. Also to the Black Parallel School Board for giving what I hear was an illuminating presentation. I was excited to talk to the Stanford fellows about some of the amazing work going on in Area 7, and really the highlight of their trip was, as individuals looking at urban innovation, setting foot on and spending a half day at Oak Ridge and seeing all of the remarkable transformative work occurring at that elementary school in my district. And then finally, I just want to say, many of you saw that Eric Guerra was elected to City Council a couple days ago. I'd like to congratulate Eric. As you know, he is an alumni of Sacramento State University and a 20-year resident of the Sacramento area. But more importantly, as he ran, articulated a real desire to work with the schools and to make sure that he wasn't just focusing on safe neighborhoods, but on strong school partnerships. And I am proud to say he will be the first elected Latino on the City Council in the last 20 years.
Thank you, Member Ryan. Member Rodriguez.
My turn. All right, so I'm going to say a couple of things from up here, and then I think it's best for me to go to the podium and then present what I have to share with you from the most recent conference that I attended, training. So I'll just start with a couple of easy things. On April 1st, I met with Councilmember Carr, and discussed many things with him about Area 5. But one critical thing that I want to share with everyone is that Councilmember Carr's office is participating in organizing, helping to organize a neighborhood cleanup on April 25th at Shining Star Drive. So I want to make sure that that gets out there. Maybe we could put that on the calendar because many of our school children live in that area and they attend the Parkway School. And he's got some really exciting things working with Luther Burbank High School. He's hoping to help and collaborate with the district to create a career stream in the field of agriculture. We also had a discussion about the Sojourner Truth Museum, long-awaited discussion to see if we can get them to possibly move into one of our vacant buildings, just footsteps away from where they're currently located. That's all I want to share about that. I will be also participating in the Career Day, April 24th at Kit Carson Middle School. And hopefully, if I can confirm with my boss, we might have a member of Deity participate. I think that would be the first time ever that we would have a member talk about that type of career field, which would be pretty cool because he has a background in science. His career that he chose was more science oriented than anything else. So it's an interesting discussion to have. And then for the rest of my presentation, I will be going down to the podium so I could walk with the board members and everyone who's here in the audience and watching along the way. So if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all if my colleagues don't mind.
All right. I think we should all take our turn up here every time we go to a training.
You need the box?
No, I don't need a box. Thank you. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so on March 24th to 25th, I went to Washington, D.C. to attend the NALEO Policy Institute. And this one was extremely informative. And just to let everyone know that earlier today, after our closed session was over, I distributed a quick pop quiz to our board members, my fellow colleagues, about Robert's Rules of Order. I'll let them talk about it if they want to talk about their experience with that. But it was just a quick kind of check-in to see what we knew about how to conduct a meeting. So our first session, a whole day session, was dedicated to Robert's Rules of Order, how to run and conduct effective meetings, and how to be an effective board member. So at this meeting, there was a couple of quotes that were very noteworthy, and I want to share them with you. We had Council Member Paul Lopez, who was from Denver, Colorado. His quote that I picked up on that I thought that was important to share with you is, "You have the power of the rules, so know them." Council Member Michelle Martinez, who's from Santa Ana, California, I thought her quote was lovely. She says, "Be a leader, not a politician. A politician looks to the next election. A leader looks to the next generation." Pretty deep. So moving forward with the Robert's Rules presentation that I have for you tonight, I want to share a quote from the parliamentarian who conducted the training. Her name is Colette Collier-Trohem. Her quote is, "If you don't take the time to do it right, when will you find the time to do it over?" And I think that's an appropriate quote for us since we've established a governance committee, we established a policy committee, a budget committee, an evaluation committee. So we have a lot of committees that we've established. Right now, we're doing it right, but we also need to do a little bit better with some rules behind us and helping us. So with that, I want to present my first document. Turn it on. I don't know, the light went off. Well, there's these green and pink cards that you all have in your packet. Should be the first one. There it is. These are to help board members and those who are running meetings in our district understand the rules of how to run a meeting. So, first you have to fix the time to begin and adjourn, recess, and it's all numbered for you. So the green cards are all numbered all the way down. It does tell you if something's in italic, it doesn't need a second. If it's bold, it's debatable. If there's an M next to it, there's a majority vote that is required. And then the pink one is handling motions, how the chair, making a motion for members, how the chair then handles the motions. So these are just quick, handy-dandy shortcut tools for you to use. And if you have copies, if you want to leave them at your station up there, that's great too. The other thing is that these snippets were given to us, and they're free for everyone. So if you can see their snippet, they have different numbers, current Robert's Rules, consent agendas, executive sessions. They just describe for you what is what, but they're free resources on the internet, and there's the email, or there's the web address at the bottom. www.agreatmeeting.com is where you can find this. She also gave us some really useful resources. I have yet to read any of these yet, because it's only been a couple of weeks. But there's links in that agreatmeeting.com to get these resources. One of these, for example, is A Great Meeting Needs a Great Chair. It's an ebook. A Great Meeting Needs a Great Secretary, a Great Treasurer, which doesn't apply to us, but some of these will apply to us. So I think she wanted to point out one of these that we should really read. I think it's social style management style. So she really encouraged all of us to look at that. Then we did something that was super fun. It was the highlight of that part of the training for us. It's called Good Boardsmanship. And board members, you will see that it's a pretty thick packet. And what we did is it was a role play. And so we had people that were at the training who role played all of this out. And, and unbelievable, but some of these were written off of actual events. So the second day what we were there was about the Common Core State Standards, Smarter Balanced Assessments, and English language learning. So the first resource I have for you in your packet is called edreports.org. And let me see what was important in there. That right there I wanted to share with everyone is that this is a report that is evaluated by teachers. And so what they want us to share is that they need more teachers to evaluate the alignment of Common Core State Standards with the testing. And so they want us to encourage our own teachers to apply to be evaluators for this program. So that way, we can get better results and we get better information. They did talk about Envision Math and how that didn't necessarily align with our Common Core State Standards. This next resource, Center on Education Policy. You can read, who they are, what they do. But the most important thing that I wanted to share with you about this one is that this actually evaluated Common Core State Standards throughout the states that participated. And there's lots of information, charts, and questions and feedback of what everyone across the nation was thinking and what they felt about it. And then Smarter Balance, which we'll be talking about later on in our presentation, so I'm just going to touch on that, let you know that there's a presentation in here about this information. And this one was actually, though, focused on the English language learner and the types of tools and tips that can be made available in our Smarter Balanced test to help people, to help the children who don't speak English as a first language take the test and be more successful at the examination. And also students with special needs, so they have visual and auditory learning. We also had a presentation that you have in your packet on ELL, helping English language learners become college and career ready. There's some very, very interesting information. There's only 2 states participating in this particular study, one of them being Seattle, or I think the lady was from Seattle, Washington. So it was very interesting to hear that presentation. And the last thing in that packet was working together to achieve goals and some strategies for success for our board to read. And then, this is really important to share with everyone, is the Office of English Language Acquisition. They have these packets of information. They have profiles. These are all things that we could print out from the internet and provide it in there in Spanish and other languages already translated, provide it to our Spanish speakers, our Hmong, Vietnamese. Gosh, they had 11 different languages that they mentioned, but these are actually available, and we don't have to use our district resources to do these informational pamphlets. So there's some of the languages: Chinese, Amharic, Arabic is on this one. This is just an example. And it explains all about some of the placement checklists that they have to be aware of. Why this packet is really important is on April 1st, I met with a group of parents who have children who are ELL, have either been designated as English language learners or have been redesignated. I provided them with a copy of that presentation and asked them to read it over thoroughly. So one of the key issues that was brought up, and I think that all board members need to pay attention to this one big issue, is that we talk about Title I funding. Title I funding portability is what they're talking about. And the Republicans in the House in Washington are pushing to make this happen. And so if that happens, districts like ours stand to lose 11 to 15% of our Title I funds. And that's really critical. We can't go through this another time. We can't lose more funding for our district. So I want to encourage everyone here, with the contacts that you have over in Washington, D.C., we really need to get together and start lobbying, not just those people who are friendly to the cause, but also to those people who might be on the fence, who are on the other side of the aisle. We need to let them know how much of a devastating impact this is going to make for districts. President Obama has vowed to veto this if it came through, but we don't know what the climate could be, when it could happen. If it doesn't happen when President Obama is there and we get a Republican president, it might go through then. So it's so critical to start now, start early, start organizing, because 11% of the loss of our funding is going to be pretty devastating to our district. Lastly, I want to share with you the annual conference for NALEO. As you can see, the trainings that we receive with NALEO are pretty comprehensive. Earlier today, whoever took that exam or that little pop quiz found it to be pretty interesting. You can find more resources like that at NALEO. And so when they're talking about having their annual conference on June 17th and 19th, Las Vegas, Nevada is where it's at this time. You can see some of the outline here for the classes. There's high stakes testing, the struggle and implications for students and teachers, out of the shadows, youth homelessness and human trafficking in our communities, ethical decision making for policymakers, and increasing opportunities for undocumented students in higher education, governance and leadership. They're actually going to have Democratic and Republican presidential candidate forums as well. So NALEO is a nonpartisan organization, and it does exist to help train and assist the elected official. That concludes my presentation today, and thank you for your time, board members.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. And I guess I'd like to remind all of us up here on the dais that we are all members of NALEO, so we can take advantage of the programming and information that they offer. Moving on, we are at item 11.1. I'm sorry. Member Cochran.
Just briefly, Member Rodriguez, would you define the acronym NALEO?
Yes, thank you. NALEO stands for National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. You do not have to be a Latino to join. They accept everybody. They just founded themselves in that manner. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Banda, President Wu, and members of the board. My name is Amari Watkins. I'm Director of Accounting Services for the district. This item being presented to you this evening is for conference and first reading, and it will come back to you at the next board meeting for action. This time, I'd like to present Jeff Small. He's a representative from our financial advisors, Capital Public Finance Group. Also joining us this evening are representatives from our bond counsel, Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, and our underwriters, Stifel, Nicholas, and Company. Jeff?
Thank you, Amari. Superintendent Banda, President Wu. We're going to have a very short presentation on the upcoming issuance of Measure Q bonds. And to the extent that we have market questions, we have the Stifel underwriting team here to answer those. We also have the bond and disclosure team of Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe here to address any legal questions that should any arise. So as you know, on November 12th, the district voters approved two bond measures, Measure Q and Measure R. Measure Q was for $346 million. Measure R was for $68 million. The last issuance of bonds was in July of 2013. The district wishes to keep the construction progress moving forward, and we are coming to you tonight to inform you of a proposed issuance of $90 million of Measure Q bonds to fund high priority projects dealing with core academic renovation, modernization, technology upgrades, fire and irrigation improvements, and other resource and energy conservation projects. We anticipate that these projects will be completed over the next 2 or 3 years, and I've been informed that although we are not looking at issuing Measure R bonds at this time, but there is a desire to embark on the kitchen project, and we will be working with Kathy Ellen on that shortly. The district has been a leader in terms of issuing bonds at low interest cost to taxpayers. And this slide number 4 is a change from what was originally presented to you. We've added this slide because in order to continue front-loading debt service as the district has done in the past, the market conditions and tax law is going to require us to issue a taxable bond for maturities in 2016 and 2017. So that's actually the new piece of information, which is we're going to have a taxable component of bonds. The reason we're doing that is we want to maintain the promise to voters of maintaining a combined tax rate of $54, and we also want to avoid the more costly structure of deferring principal payment, which most districts do. And given the fact that the Sacramento City Unified School District is looking at being more innovative and reducing those costs to taxpayers, we like to front load that structure. We're also going to be having a tax-exempt portion, which will be the primary portion of the issuance for maturities ranging from 2018 to 2040. And as you will see on the estimated sizing, you can see in the first column there's going to be approximately $62 million of bonds that are just your conventional tax-exempt bonds. And given current market conditions, bonds are typically sold least expensively at an interest rate of, say, 5%, but the market is only about 3.5%. Therefore, the investors pay a premium, which is akin to getting a rebate from your lender. That premium is about $7 million. It's very large. That's the district's money that goes to offset tax rates. You can see how the uses of funds are displayed for those tax-exempt bonds. I'll come back to the uses of funds, but I do want to point out that that second column is the $28 million of taxable bonds that I referenced. Those taxable bonds mature in 2016, 2017, and they allow for the front loading and also a cost-effective transaction. I think the important part of this slide is really to focus in on how all the money is used. And so if we were just to focus on the total of the uses of monies, you'll see about $89,066,000 of bond proceeds are going to be available to fund the high priority projects. There's cost of issuance of about $215,000, and I'll detail what those are in a minute. We have the underwriter's discount, which is essentially the commission that is paid to salespeople who are required to sell the bonds to investors. Cost of a bond insurance, which simply allows the districts to obtain lower cost of funds by relying on a bond insurer's credit rating of AA versus the district's credit rating of A+, which actually is a very high credit rating, and the district has done a very good job at maintaining it at that level. Finally, you see the $6.9 million that I referenced earlier. That is the district's money. That money goes to the county, and it's held to offset interest costs on the borrowing. The cost of issuance is on slide 6. It's essentially the cost for the borrowing. It outlines costs of the bond and disclosure council, our firm, as well as the other expenses that are typically incurred. And those costs total about $215,000. Finally, slide number 7 talks about the tax rates. And as you may recall, the promise made to voters is a tax rate of $54. The measure R is the yellow portion of the bar. Measure blue is for the measure Q bonds. You can see that in 2016, 2017, we are maxing out the tax rate at $54, which is a very positive thing. And then the tax rate comes down because the next time the district anticipates issuing debt is in 2017, and there's room in the tax rates that will enable the district to do just that. Finally, slide number 8 talks about the debt service that is available. And you can see approximately 20% of the debt service is paid during the first 2 years. And that's really what the district has been a leader in, and that has led to a low cost of funds. And I think it's important to state that most of the district's projects, they're really 30-year projects. The average life of this borrowing is approximately 11 years. And the benefit of that, of course, is we're able to save a lot in interest. So if you look at this graph, this is just principal repayment of $90 million. Based on our current numbers, we're estimating net debt service about 127, 128 million. So we're borrowing the $90 million to only repay a net debt service of about 127 million is excellent, and that's made possible because of the front-loading structure that you have. Finally, you do have a resolution, and you do have some documents as part of your packet. The team will bring these back on April 23rd for approval. You have a paying agent agreement that essentially describes the terms of the issuance. The bond purchase agreement, that will be signed in early May based on pricing that we're able to achieve with Steve Nicholas, our underwriter. District's bonds will be extremely attractive. The structure is attractive. That will enable Stiefel to get a lot of different bids for those maturities and reduce costs. There is a continuing disclosure certificate. I know that the board is very familiar with that. It essentially provides for the ongoing obligations of the district to provide market information, and an official statement which will be used to market the bonds. In brief, that describes the district's finances, the district's tax base, and the parameters of the bonds themselves. So with that, we do look forward to returning to you for action on April 23rd. We will price in mid-May. Currently, we're targeting May 13th. And we will have funds to continue Measure Q projects in early June. And with that, I'm happy to entertain questions and also involve members of our financing team in answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Small. We have no public comments. Mr. Hanson.
Just a few questions, please. If you can go back to the slide that has the slide 5. So I understand a few more pieces of these. So the bond insurance, what interest rate was that able to move us from what to what by buying that extra insurance?
It's hard to say, but there's probably, and I don't know if Bruce, you and your team want to quantify that, but there's usually about, would you say, 10 basis points savings from that. And hard to quantify in terms of actual dollars, but what we do is just before the sale, we look at the interest rates without the bond insurance, and we look at the interest rates with the bond insurance and the cost, and we do a net present value calculation. And if, in fact, that AA insured rating produces an overall lower cost of funds than the district's financing without that bond insurance, then the decision is made to purchase bond insurance, and we actually certify that there's value in obtaining that bond insurance.
I assume you share that information then with our, CFO, or someone is informed of that, what the rate would be with and without, so we are making sure we're getting value for spending that extra $270,000.
Yes, as Jeff stated, typically farther into the process than now, we'll get that information and we'll have the opportunity to make analysis. So Gerardo and the rest of the team will have a look at that information and we'll choose whether or not to purchase based on the results.
If I may just make one other comment on that, because we are paying a large amount of the bonds up front, it is possible that not all of the maturities will need to be insured, and so we might be able to save additional funds that way.
So, and for determining the debt service fund dollar amount, how is that calculated?
That is a market-driven calculation. It's actually based on the actual interest rates that are required to allow an investor to have liquidity of their debt. So in other words, in the current market rate environment, investors like to see a 5% coupon interest rate. But yields are not 5%, they're more like 3.5%. So we'll be working closely with the Stiefel team to determine what is the right interest rate that will provide that liquidity and also manage that premium. And I'm happy to, if you have further thoughts on that, you're welcome to.
The couponing structure.
The microphone, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The interest rate coupons that Jeff just described, the example being a 5% coupon, which is the interest rate the district is paying on the borrowing, and a 3 or 4% yield to the investor, means that that investor is paying to the district more than $1 for a dollar's worth of bonds. And those extra dollars over the dollar per bond is what constitutes the amount of money in original issue premium that is then directed to the debt service fund. And the money in that debt service fund is used to offset interest payments on the bonds in the earlier years and helps us organize and structure the pattern of debt service excuse me, to better accomplish the $54 tax.
Okay. And turning 2 more slides to slide 7, $54 tax rate. So our residents are assessed at the $54 tax rate, under this scenario, assuming all this is correct, for 2016 and 2017, and then the rate goes down for the residents. Am I correct, and am I reading this correctly?
Well, if no other bonds were to be issued, the rate would go down, but we do plan on issuing more bonds in 2017 for more projects. So we want to actually maintain that $54 level.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Arroyo.
Thank you, President Wu. I have one question on the interest rate. Is that fixed, adjustable? Or?
It's all fixed interest rates.
So it's not like we're going to see that bubble up or balloon up to anything. Okay.
No, yeah, it's going to be fixed for the life of the bonds.
Okay, that's good. And then if I can ask Superintendent this, we have a bond oversight committee, and would it be possible in future presentations or whenever we're going to be dealing with bonds, if we can invite either the chair or someone from the committee to just lend us their expertise or their observations, feedback, given the fact that they're looking at this stuff, or they should be, and doing homework on it. And if they're an advisory committee to the board, I like to make use of the work that they're doing instead of just, having them and not really benefiting from their feedback unless it's not applicable to this.
I'm not sure what role they would play. So they're there to make sure that the money that is allocated for these programs are used appropriately and spent wisely. Determining the issuance and whatnot, I think it's this part of this group, but I don't see why one of them or maybe the head of that group.
And I'm not talking about on the issuance part. I know that that's your job, but I mean, once they get issued and then their job is to help us put oversight on the expenditure. I haven't heard from them for a while on what has happened with the previous bonds, where we're at with them. And it's great to hear from you, but we are asking a committed group of folks in the community to help us provide that kind of oversight. And so once in a while, it would be great as we are moving with the sale of other ones to also hear what's going on with the other ones. And I think that it would provide a greater level of confidence to the community to hear from them, as well as to what has gone on with the previous ones as we're planning to issue more. And that's what I was trying to get at.
All right. Then we'll work on figuring out a way that they can come in and be able to present.
We invite them, and hopefully I'm sure that they'll like to.
I just wanted to share our next BOC meeting, the Bond Oversight Committee, is next Wednesday, and there is plans. They do present to the board annually, and I believe that they'll be presenting in this upcoming June with their annual report.
Okay, that would be great.
Thank you, Mark. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Wu. I actually wasn't going to comment on anything because Vice President Hansen actually did such a good job at asking questions, which I really like. But I want to just address the issue of the Bond Oversight Committee and support that what the superintendent said is correct. They don't have a role into this part. They shouldn't have a role into this piece either. But I liked your idea to have them come and report to the board. I think the last presentation that I recall is from Rachel Minnick, who is a member of that committee. And so I cannot recall off the top of my head who is part of the facilities committee, but perhaps part of the report out from the facilities committee back to the board should be a coordinated effort with the Bond Oversight Committee, or even the other alternative might be agendizing them to come when we have our other reports due, and then they can come once a month and update us on what the projects are. So, not to take away from this presentation, but that might be even a better idea.
Maybe just in furtherance of Member Rodriguez's point, it's important for the board to keep its policy-making role distinct from the Oversight Committee, which is staffed by unelected people and whose responsibilities are retrospective as conceived of in statute, which is to review expenditures that have already been made. And I have seen some districts where the Oversight Committee has started to make prospective decisions, and that has become problematic.
Thank you. And I get the distinction between policymaking and oversight because, as we're creating policy and we're kind of looking into the future as to what road we should take. But the oversight committee does help us provide important feedback as to how things are going once things roll out. And it's good to know where we've been and hear the work that they've done. They are doing the work. They are meeting. They are providing oversight, and I think that it's just important information. I mean, not necessarily that they're going to be making decisions for how we're going to implement this policy, but it will help us then. Whatever information, feedback they might have as we're planning how to move to the future. So it's all linked. So that was the main point.
I'm sorry about that. Just to finish and to kind of take on what you were just saying, it's a retrospective look. But as us, the board, if we need to determine whether the funds are being utilized adequately so that we can make prospective decisions. So otherwise, then we're just kind of trusting and flying out there, blind faith that this money is going to be utilized in the manner in which we have intended it to be used. So it is an important issue for us. Thank you. Thank you.
Member Rodriguez, to answer your comment about meeting or having them attend monthly the meeting, they do meet quarterly. And so I don't foresee them attending or reporting back more than quarterly. And it is written into their bylaws, I believe, to have the one annual report. So if there's something envisioned that you would desire greater than that, we would have to take that back to the committee.
Thank you, Director Watkins. And when will you contemplate being back before us?
Third, I believe, is the next at the next board meeting.
Hey, we'll see you at the next board meeting then. Thank you. Thank you. Item 11.2, Common Core State Assessment. Dr. Roberts. Mr. Ross, are you joining her? Thank you. You want to give them to me? Gabe.
Good evening, Board President Wu, Superintendent Bonda, and members of the board. I am joined by Gabe Ross, our Chief Communications Officer, and Robin Martin, our Director of Assessment, Research, and Evaluation. Tonight, we're pleased to present to you information pertaining to the new state assessment system. As you're aware, in 2010, California State Board of Education adopted the Common Core State Standards. To measure students' understanding of these standards, the state is administering the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress for English Language Arts Literacy and Mathematics via the Smarter Balanced Computer Adaptive Test. These new assessments, which are measuring higher order thinking skills, are more rigorous and are replacing what we knew as the California Standards Test. To guide our presentation tonight, Robin will, what happened? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Robin will first provide an overview of the summative assessment program, and will share with you information regarding the test administration and how the results will be reported. And lastly, Mr. Ross will join the podium and share with you strategies being used to communicate and engage our stakeholders. At this time, you will now hear from Robin Martin.
Good evening, Superintendent Bonda, President Wu, members of the board. I'm going to walk you through three of the sections next, which is just providing you an overview of the CASP summative assessment for the spring administration, followed by some logistical details of the test administration in the district, followed by how those reports will look. What the CASP looks like for spring 2014 is that there are three online assessments, three online components, and one paper and pencil-based assessment, which is the STAR Legacy Assessment, the Science CST. The biggest change for this year with the SBAC summative assessment is that it is operational, so we will receive test results. And the other big change is that the test this year is computer adaptive. So that'll be pretty significant for us. And with the EAP continues to remain optional, but it will be fully embedded in the SBAC ELA and math assessments for grade 11. So it'll be contained within those exams. And also new for this year is the California Alternate Assessment, which replaces the CAPA for our students with significant disabilities. And it'll now only be administered in similar grade levels as the SBAC in grades 3 through 8 and 11. And this year is a field test for that test, so it is a test of the items, not a test of the students. We will not receive results. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about those exams. So with the SBAC summative, students will expect to take between 40 and 45 questions for the ELA component, and in addition to 3 performance task items. And with math, students will take anywhere between 30 and 35 items and about 6 performance task items, and that is just dependent on grade level. And the optional component with the EAP is just that when the student finishes the exam, they have the option of clicking on a yes or no whether or not they want the scores to go to the CSU and or the community college system. And as you know, as similar to the way STAR rolled out, CASP will be an assessment system that is in development, continue to be in development. The most current feature that we can expect from that development will be the science assessments that are aligned to the next generation science standards, as well as the primary language assessments, which replace the old CST STS, the standards-based science in Spanish. And in the future, we would expect to see exams in the history, social sciences, art, and technology, as well as end-of-year subject exams. And while all of that is part of the intention of the implementing legislation, it is contingent on budget allocations. And right now, the science assessments and the primary language assessments are part of the new contract that was recently awarded. So those assessments will be forthcoming in the next couple of years. And before we leave an overview of the CASP assessment program, I just wanted to briefly, simplistically explain the way computer adaptive testing works. And I will just do that by walking you quickly through the chart. On the left-hand axis is a range of item difficulty and performance levels on a scale from 20 to 100 in terms of the level of difficulty. And the way the adaptive system works is that students will roughly start at the same point, which is the mid-range of grade level difficulty. So you can see on the left-hand side of the vertical axis, the first question is at about the 50 mark, which is that medium range of difficulty. In this example, the student answers the question correctly. Therefore, the system's algorithm begins based on the student's test result. The student got the answer correct, so therefore the system responds by delivering a more challenging test questions. And in this example, we could see the student got the next question correct, so the system responds based on that response with a more challenging question. And in the next question, the student gets the question wrong, and the system adapts and responds by delivering a less difficult question, and then the test continues to respond to the test taker. And just some things to note with the adaptive test format is that it does allow us to see faster results, and the scoring is contained within the test itself, and so we will expect to see results within about 4 weeks. And because it is computer adaptive, the students will take fewer test questions overall, and fewer test questions doesn't mean that we're getting any less information. It just means that it's a more accurate method by which we can more precisely determine and measure where students' knowledge and skills are at the test. And because it is tailored to students' ability in terms of their level of skill, it really does afford the student to have a greater motivation when testing and feel less pressure and reduce stress because the system is responding to the level at which the student is. And it is standard industry technology, and it's been around for quite a while. And just some logistics about the test administration in our district. The assessment window runs from March through June. It's really large, and this year we're utilizing the entire window because it is operational. We want as much time as affords us to have a smooth administration. Typically, well, in grades 3 through 8, it's a 12-week window, which means that that window begins after 66% of instruction has taken place. And for grade 11, it's a shorter window. It's a 7-week window, and it takes place after 80% of instruction has occurred. And we will receive results back within 4 weeks after our last student in our last school has administered the assessments. And that will be electronic access only, so that'll be around early July. And we will continue to receive the paper copies that we will mail home. And we will receive those about 8 weeks after testing, so the end of July, early August. And the estimated testing times are pretty similar to the old STAR test times. Students will spend a total of about 7 to 8.5 hours completing both sections of the assessment. And this is just a detailed table providing you some general time frames by which students can complete the ELA and math portions of the assessment by grade level span, with times for the estimated times for the computer adaptive component and the performance task component. No big changes there. And the test itself does afford students the same type of tools that the previous CSTs provided. These tools, however, are embedded in the test platform itself, in the test, and some of the universal tools that all students will continue to have access to are the glossaries, being able to expand the passages, utilize highlighters within the system, use the notepad to take notes, and where the items allow, the calculator will be available for use, and students can flag and mark items for review that they could return to later. And of course, some of the non-embedded items are those that we provide, which is scratch paper, taking breaks, and thesauruses. And some of the other embedded and non-embedded supports are still available for our students on individualized education plans and 504s, and for our EL students who utilize supports in the classroom. So those embedded and non-embedded supports will continue to be available. Embedded supports include text-to-speech, use of calculator, either embedded or non-embedded in the system, glossaries, translated dictionaries, and so forth. And one of the ways that students and teachers gain familiarity with the system, with the online assessment delivery system and the items and the test itself, is to utilize the training and/or practice tests. The training tests in particular are tests that allow the teacher and the student the full experience of a summative assessment. It's typically the same length, and they're available in grade spans. And there are 6 to 9 items per grade band in each content area, and they do include the same universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations that will be in the operational test environment. And I do have a location if you haven't been to the practice test already, and if time affords us at the end of this presentation, we could certainly take a live demonstration and walk through the practice test site. In the event we don't, we have included some sample test items for review, and please feel free to expound on either one of them. The first is a math item, and this is an example of how students would select a multiple choice selected response in that there is more than one correct answer, and this represents ways that students are learning to solve math through the Common Core, utilizing multiple representations and ways to solve a problem. So this is a type of question that will yield more than one score point. So if a student would select, for instance, only 3 or only 2 of the 3 items, they would earn 2 score points, or 1 score point versus 2 score points, or 0 if they didn't select any. The next example is a grade 8 ELA test item. The students are asked to read the poem, And at the end of the poem, they are asked to identify which two lines reveal the change in the speaker's message to her subject. And this is an example of a technology-enhanced item. So the student will use the marker and the highlighter to identify which parts or text in the passage is correct. And by selecting next, going on to the next question constitutes the answer to this question, and the student moves on. In terms of results reporting, some key things to note about the 2015 spring results that will go home. And you do have a sample copy of this draft report in your packet. And important to note is that the State Board of Education approved this report for the spring results for only 1 year. It will look substantially different next year. And it is expected to reach our homes in about 10 weeks. And the report will have 4 reporting areas for the SBAC component of the assessment: the overall scale score, the achievement level, and claim scores at the subject level for each ELA and math, as well as an EAP, the Early Assessment Program Readiness Indicator for grade 11. And it will also have the legacy score for the CST Science, which is the same. Nothing's changed with that. The first part of the new summatives assessment score that I'll go over is the overall performance score. It's on the first page if you're looking at your attachment in your handout. For this example, we're just looking at Juan's ELA score. His scale score, you could see, is 2508, and the scale scores are on a scale from 2,000 to 3,000. And the overall score is the scale score of note, the one that we'll want to track from this point moving forward, that we'll be utilizing to determine and show growth in student and school and district achievement and progress. At the bottom of that scale are the 4 performance categories, which run from standards not met to standards exceeded. So in addition to having the scale score as an overall measure of student performance, we'll still have those 4 categories of performance level descriptors. And those are required by the federal government under NCLB. And the state of California has not yet determined what those thresholds will be for meeting standards, but right now these are the standard cut points that have been set and approved by the consortium. So it may look and read in terms of the terminology and descriptors differently for next year. So some important things to note about the scale score is that it does lend a more precise indicator of student growth, and it is going to be the metric that will be used to calculate growth over time. This is now a vertically scaled exam, which will allow us to do that at the individual student level from grade to grade along the same scale. And with the performance levels, with the performance levels, again, it's required under federal law. It's a starting point for discussion, and no means does it provide an indication of the student's total or sum performance level. And also on this report is an average score. You'll see it boxed and dotted boxed around the diamond. And that average score is a reference point. And in future reports, there will always be a reference point. And in this year's report, the reference point is how all students in this grade level performed on the SBAC field test last year. So in this example, it's comparing Juan's score to all those in whichever one you're looking at, if it's 5th grade, to all the 5th grade students who took that test in the field test the previous year. So there's a reference point, not necessarily the one that we want or that the state board wants, but that's the reference point that is on this year's report. And the next slide, I had just walked through some of those key points to consider as you interpret each one of those overall indicators, whether it's the performance level descriptor, the scale score, or the average score. And the other point of information that will be available for the SBAC assessments in English language math are the claim scores. You might kind of reference those back to the old CST strand and cluster scores. They are descriptor performance levels only. They're not numeric, nor will they be. They provide just a generalized idea of where students performed in each of those different subject levels. And for the 11th grade, the test report, results report will also include the EAP results, and they are essentially indicators of college readiness, and those really haven't changed except for the labels. There will be quite a few different ways that students can meet EAP readiness for this year, because EAP is based on the summative assessment, so that will be our baseline moving forward. So we don't want to compare how students performed or what percentage of students were college ready on the EAP last year to this year, because there are two different assessments, different scores, different metrics. And so this will be a new baseline for students, and students will also have the opportunity to utilize AP performance thresholds to qualify for EAP readiness, ACT threshold, and SAT threshold performance to qualify for EAP readiness.
We're going to be stuck in third grade forever.
Hope that wasn't a comment about me.
That's about me.
Good evening. As I think we all know by now, this shift is a heavy lift for everyone in our district and really everyone in education. Not only are students learning in a new way through the Common Core state standards, but now they're going to be assessed differently. Not just on the content, but the manner in which they're being tested. So we know there's prone for some, this transition is prone for some sticker shock, and I think there's examples all around the country of that happening, most notably in New York, where the response to results when they came out caused some alarm, and I think caused state lawmakers to rethink their approach. So I think fortunately California has moved slowly to the point where they've been able to learn, hopefully, from a lot of the things that other states have done. However, we anticipate there's going to be some sticker shock here as well. And really one of our key messages has been in working with parents and the community is urging caution and patience in this process. This truly is a new baseline year. You can't compare this year's results to last year's results or previous years. In fact, as Robin mentioned, they don't even look the same. So it's really important that we look at this as a new starting point, as the superintendent has said before, as an opportunity to reset this conversation around testing and scores for schools. We, of course, have been working hard, not just this year, but really over the past few years, to gear up for this conversation and prepare our schools for this transition. You can see an example on the screen of some of the things that we've been working on. Member Cochran was with us at Sutter Middle School when State Superintendent Torlakson launched the statewide testing window here in Sacramento. And we've been working with all of our partners really on the message of, again, be patient. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and let's make sure that we have faith in the process and see this through. Most of our engagement from a communication standpoint is really about providing schools with the resources they need to have the conversations at the school site level. We know that many of these conversations around why do my scores look different, why is this test so different, those are happening with parents and their kids' teachers or the principals at their school, and those are happening at back to school nights and parent nights. So really our focus has been on providing tools for our site leaders and teachers to have those conversations and really set that context for parents at a real local level. We provided some easy-to-read talking points for principals and actually sent them out to all district staff through one of the superintendent's newsletters so that everyone can, again, be on the same page with regards to that message. With that, I'll hand it back over to whom?
We'll just leave you with some additional resources that are publicly available and have been publicly available. It's important just to check back in. New resources are always added. 2 resources at the bottom are our own. We repackage these resources available for our teachers and our staff, and there's also the Common Core resources, which lend more to the standards information and
Thank you, Robin. We have public comments, I believe.
We have 4 public comments on item 11.2 from Darlene Anderson, Liz Guillen, Carl Pinkston, and Angie Sutherland.
Good evening, Darlene Anderson. I think the most important thing for the African American community is to understand that failure is rampant in this district. And it's just not one person's child, so let's not look at it that way. A lot of people might think, well, what is she talking about? Well, I say that African Americans are on the bottom in this district. And what does that look like? It's just not your child failing. There are many black children failing in this district. And what does that look like? In Sacramento, it looks like the highest infant death mortality rate around schools that have high failure. That's what it looks like. And you ask, well, where's the black community? And I must say, I don't know yet, because a lot of people just don't think that it's their responsibility. But the responsibility lies on the public. And if the public never comes out, well, hell, it's been 50 years, and black people don't get it yet. They're not here. So if we have one person representing, one person can't represent everyone, even if that one person understands. But we live in a democracy, which is a republic. California is a republic. So individuals do count, and individual voices do count. So when I come to the board and I'm speaking to the wall, and the wall has not acknowledged in the last 20 years that they need to do something about the failure of African American children in this district. Common Core means, let's look and see where we are. California still wants the Title I money. Let's do LCAP. Well, that means we have to involve those parents too, don't we? Let's just pretend that we offered them an offer of faith, which is a behavioral modification or a behavioral placement. That really doesn't work. You know why? Because in order to get that due process hearing, you have to have committed a crime or something. But we use the hearing office for other reasons. And I would encourage every black person in Sacramento to start coming to these board meetings, to have the conversation so we can close the achievement gap and we can treat these children like they're human beings, so we don't have to see young black people being gunned down in the street and black people still not saying anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Banda, President Wu. I'm Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. Thank you for the staff. All this hard work on Common Core. It's a really exciting time, but it's also a lot of work. And I understand all that you must be having to go through. What I wanted to point out tonight was the funding for Common Core. So I passed out this sheet from the State Department of Ed's website. If you recall, the state gave $1.25 billion to all school districts for implementation of Common Core, and it allowed the school districts to spend the money in two budget years. The reporting is going to be due in July. And so I wanted to point out that on the second page, you'll see that Sacramento City Unified was entitled to $8.5 million, and you'll see the reporting forms on the next few pages, which are fairly detailed. They also include, and I wanted to highlight, the English language development sections of the report. In every report related to professional learning, instructional materials, and technology, the three areas that the funding is supposed to be used for, there's an English language development piece, which I think for this district is really important. The points I wanted to make are that the detailed report here is really, I think, a lot of good information that would be helpful to understand the information that's in the LCAP. The LCAP speaks a lot to implementation of state standards and Common Core. Yet in the LCAP, there's only one expenditure of $1.5 million from the Common Core Fund. Everything else is from LCFF. It would be really helpful to understand how they work together, and especially for the goal by the Community Priority Coalition of intervention. You recall that they wanted the LCAP and the work of the district with the use of supplemental and concentration to focus on low-income English learners and foster youth around interventions to increase academic achievement. I think overlapping them and having that information linked to each other would be really helpful, so that transparency is much more than just having the information, but understanding it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Wu, Superintendent Banda. My name is Carl Pinkston. I'm with the Black Parallel School Board. I'm here tonight to speak to the Common Core on a number of things. One is that the Black Parallel School Board for the last 3 months have been evaluating and assessing and learning about the Common Core, particularly in terms of how it's being implemented and the impact that it's going to have on students of African descent. What we have learned is that there's a couple of things that I would strongly suggest the board to think about. One is having to do is how the impact of the testing will have on students of African descent, particularly using marker schools, which we would describe Leotata Floyd, Rosa Parks, and Luther Burbank, but most particularly the elementary school, Leotata Floyd, as your baseline as to how well students of African descent are doing. That's one. The second thing is having to take a look at, in terms of preparation time, how much time is being used in terms of learning how to use the computer, the testing, prep, the skills level that is going to be required. Three, the impact of, and I strongly think you should look at in terms of long term, in terms of the equipment, how long those equipment will last for testing and what impact will that have in the long term. And then last but not least, look at it in terms of the broader perspective of what the Community Priority Coalition has made a request in terms of making the connection of the Common Core, class size reduction, early intervention, and restorative justice, how all those pieces fit together in terms of the testing. So I think it's critically important as you look at this particular year, take a look at all those elements. And then last but not least, I know I ran out of time, but last but not least, please consider us as a partner in terms of getting the information out to the community. Our community do not know exactly what this Common Core is all about. In fact, there's a lot of concerns and misconception because it's been framed in a political context, not necessarily what does it mean in terms of critical thinking skills. And I think one of the things that this district should take a look at is identifying different community-based organizations like ourselves and others who can get the word out as to what Common Core is and how parents can help their kids prepare for taking the test in this 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston.
Hi, I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm a parent, and I have a daughter at Hollywood Park Elementary, and I wanted to talk about three things relating to Common Core funding, testing, and then the stakeholder engagement. So first, I note that last year it was indicated that there was $8.6 million in funding, but the report this year from this meeting says $4.9 million, so I'm not it seems like there's a discrepancy. Maybe I'm just not understanding it correctly, but it would be nice to know what those fundings were covering. And then with regard to stakeholder engagement, I know last school year it was just lots and lots of workshops happening, and our CAC did a workshop. We did a workshop this year, but I haven't noticed any other workshops this year. So if we could get back to that, that would be great. It would help increase people's awareness of what Common Core is and how the testing works as well. And then as far as assessment, I just want to thank my daughter's school because, well, her current school, Hollywood Park, and then her former school, Hubert Bancroft, they have been, ever since she was in first grade, going to computer lab. She's been doing, logging in herself, they really tried to prep them early on using the computer. So I feel comfortable with the fact that she'll be taking computerized tests. And this year, they're using a keyboarding app in class because she has computers in her classroom. So I feel confident with that, and just wanted to thank the two schools for that. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. No, Jim. We have no more public comments, so I'll ask my colleagues if they have questions. Member Arroyo first.
Thank you, President Wu. On the presentation, really quickly, as I saw the questions, is there a time per question the students have to answer that question by, or they can spend any?
Individual items are not timed, nor is the test timed. There's just an estimated time for completion. And there are also, for instance, if there's an interruption of some sort, student falls ill, needs to take an extended break, the test is paused, and it will remain paused for a designated period of time so that the student can go back in and complete testing.
Got it. And then this question is for yourself or Dr. Olivine Roberts. Do you know of any research or are aware of any research showing any statistically meaningful differences between students who have PCs at home or have the access to technology at home or grew up with it versus families that don't? What I'm trying to get at is the point of as we move into this new era, right? I mean, this is imposed on us. We have to kind of move on and deal with this new reality. So will the students. And I just want to be clear of any gaps that either research shows so that we as decision makers, policymakers can then do better decision-making process as we allocate resources or how we distribute resources. Cultural issues, for example, back in the day, I remember questions on the SAT being drafted with a very biased cultural perspective where some students were not able to relate to some of these questions. And even though the preparers of the test were not necessarily thinking that they were being biased, they were. And so as we move into these new eras of electronic testing, computer testing, we do have a significant number of our students that we serve may not have the means, necessarily to have a computer in every room or to have access to the technological resources that might put them on par with other students in order to succeed in doing the test. I mean, I struggled with test anxiety, and it was just on regular paper. So if I wasn't too sure about how to approach this test and then I had text anxiety, how am I going to be dealing with it, to begin with? So this is more of a prospective as we look down into the future. If you guys hear, see, or know as to how this new process may be biased or affected by technology, it would be good to know. So, and I don't know if I need to elaborate further if you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Well, right now, we do not have any data to support the hypothesis that you've brought forth. We do know that there is a digital divide, but in terms of a computer adaptive testing, because this is a new era, new landscape, new territory that we're navigating, we will need to be able to collect data to determine where the gaps are. And we will continue to ensure that we're providing our parents and our teachers with as many opportunities as possible to engage them with the technology. So the first time our students are using the technology is not during the months of March through June, that it is actually a tool that is being used to enhance the learning in the classroom.
And by no means I'm trying to say that this is all entirely your responsibility. I mean, in terms of data and data collection, I'm sure that there's a plethora of research or researchers to task. Different university, college of education taking different issues. It might be just an issue of researching and seeing if this is an issue. If it's not, then it's not. But if there are statistical differences or meaningful differences, we might want to then, as we are dealing with bond money, right? I mean, to make sure that every classroom has technology, or as we look into the incoming years, then we can start properly preparing for that new reality to make sure that we are not, disadvantaging our students and make sure that all of them are on par.
It is definitely something to watch. And, there is, as I said, a plethora of data regarding the digital divide, but in terms of this new vehicle to administer assessments, at this time we do not have anything specific to that. But it is definitely something that we will watch for and we will bring to the board's attention.
Alrighty, thank you.
Member Cochran.
Thank you, President Wu. I think I might be in a very unique position here because I think unless there is a teacher out in the audience, I might be the only person in this room who actually has given this test to students and gone through the process, and in 1 week I will be doing it again. So I have some general comments and some questions because some things were revealed tonight that I really didn't know about. I'd like to comment and compliment the speakers who came up, particularly regarding the funding and the equipment shelf life, because already we can see wear and tear on some of the carts that we have in the classroom, and we want to make sure that funding tied to that equipment stays in place. Something to think about for the future. You mentioned that the students can click or select to choose information to community colleges or to the CSU system. What do those systems do with that information?
That data is used, particularly at the CSU, is used to determine if students are able to, once they leave our system, to begin taking college-ready courses. So it really helps them to determine if the students are ready to take courses or do they need to participate in some remedial courses. So the data currently will report out whether or not they are ready or conditionally ready. And so, for example, we have a partnership through the SAC pathways with SAC State that if students leave Sac City Unified and they are college ready, they do not need to take any of the what you would call the prerequisite courses. They can go straight in and begin taking on college level courses immediately.
So it's student choice to select that.
It is
okay.
right now,
And
yes.
when you are contemplating entering community college, for example, are you taking the identical test that these students are taking now to get yourself placed, or is it a different placement test?
The community colleges have a different administration of battery of assessments, which is very different from the EAP.
That seems, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Okay. That seems like a little bit of a disconnect because you're using two different tests to determine where your placement should be.
There are two different institutions. So the community colleges, they're in conversations right now with the state as well as with the UCs to determine what will be that determining point on the smarter balance that everyone can agree upon to indicate whether or not a student is indeed college career ready. That is why this year the California system, university system, is actually giving us other opportunities beyond the exam to identify if students are indeed college career ready, particularly using the AP exams as well as the AP courses and the passing of SATs and ACT exams.
Okay. Another concern, and this is just nuts and bolts, we have to make sure that the Wi-Fi is up to standards in all the schools where the test is being administered. And we all can say, oh, we're good, but we all know we cannot be good on any given day. So is there a backup for that, additional testing days? Are you troubleshooting?
Yeah, and currently we are utilizing the entire window, which is the 12-week window or the 7-week window in grade 11, and we have run all the bandwidth tests, the bandwidth checkers, and all of our sites, even our sites who are scheduled for E-rate repairs and upgrades, are still within the parameters of soundly operationally completing assessments. And to date, we've maybe completed 3% of testing overall, and we have not had any reports of bandwidth or internet connectivity issues, other than a slight server failure in the East Bay that affected all of us, but they immediately rerouted us to a secondary server, and we didn't know the difference of that failing, so we haven't experienced any issues yet.
Okay. How many instructional school days are students losing because of this test?
I think that varies by every school site's calendar, the way they have it scheduled. I couldn't give an estimation of that at this moment.
Can you find out for us later? Sure. Okay, thank you. Another thing, is this a comment? As a teacher and knowing my colleagues, it can be very difficult to give these tests and to understand exactly the ins and outs of them, but particularly if something doesn't go right while you're giving the test, to be able to troubleshoot that. So I implore you to give not only general training, but also to do a reality check with the teachers to make sure that they can effectively give this test. And I'm confessing that I'm one who sometimes stumbles on these things, so I know what it's like. Just a couple other questions. How is the writing component graded? Because you are entering responses to prompts. You may or may not have good keyboarding skills. You may or may not have standard English, but you can understand the question and you might have a very intelligent answer. So how is this system grading data entry?
You mean from the student perspective as a student?
No, I mean, how are they evaluating what the student inputs in response to the prompts?
Yeah, so SBAC is utilizing both artificial intelligence for scoring and human scores.
So
score the student, the performance task, and
so a person looks at every student's response?
Yes, and or a double score if needed.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. So an actual human looks at every response?
Yes, they're both human scored and or double scored, and they're also scored with artificial intelligence software.
Okay.
In proportion.
All right, thank you. A couple more questions. You mentioned in the presentation that potentially this will be given for primary English language testing and primary language testing. Mm-hmm. Again, back to Member Arroyo's point, people come to this country where they don't have a computer in their village. So how are you going to effectively assess someone's primary language capability?
I think the technology skill level, remains, and we've had a brief conversation with that. But again, newcomers who are new to the country the current exemptions in state law exist. So students who are new to this country for less than 12 months will not be required to take that primary language assessment, and the primary language assessment is only for the ELA component.
And my final comment, and I think this is very important. Our students are fluent on this, but they're not fluent necessarily on keyboards or responding to prompts on the computer and writing effectively. And they might be very intelligent, and they might be able to give a written answer with pencil and paper. I have deep concern about this test accurately being able to gauge what they've learned and how they're doing. Do you want to comment on that?
So we are, to allude to the point that I made regarding Board Member Arroyo's remark regarding the digital divide, it is critical, again, that we are not just having the students to experience this during the testing window, but we are providing as many opportunities throughout the school year for them to be able to use the technology to convey their thinking and for us to be able to see their level of understanding of the content. And so teachers are utilizing the technology as often as possible, contingent upon the number of computers that are at a site to be able to provide these experiences to the students.
I can just add that I think that I think there's a lot of questions around the state and around the country about these exams and how they'll work in concert with the Common Core standards. And the good news is that we're all in the same boat, that throughout the state we're going to be learning together. We know that there's so many factors, right? There's access to technology for students. There's their capacity and knowledge of the content of the actual standards themselves. There's technology at school sites, our school's wireless capacity, teachers' capacity to support their students. All these things that really underscore why the sort of message that we've been giving and message from the state level, and the state board president, Michael Kirst, has really been doing sort of a roadshow around the state saying, urging caution and patience, and say this is a baseline year. We know there's going to be hiccups. That's okay. We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. because in the end, we think this is going to prepare our kids better for college and career.
This is an excellent team, and I'm not going to belabor this point, but I can see 3 points where this is already problematic. You're going to have initial primary language testing, and it may or may not be accurate. You may have a student click that send button to send the information to the community colleges or the CSU, and it may or may not actually reflect what they're capable of. And also the keyboarding skills may not reflect what they're able to do. And yes, this is baseline and we're getting ready, but as things roll forward, these can be judgment points that may or may not be accurate. I really thank your answers on the questions.
Member Ryan?
Thank you, President Wu. I'd like to thank my fellow board members for their excellent comments. I'm not going to belabor the point around the digital divide, although I share my fellow board members' concerns, and I recognize that that can significantly impact a student's ability to take this test and feel confident in taking the test, and their exposure to the test prep will be limited compared to a student's exposure to a laptop or a computer in the home place. I also wanted to thank those who gave public comment. I thought several of their remarks were completely on point. So rather than reiterate everything that was said, I do want to focus on a couple key things. When talking about Common Core standards and smarter balanced assessments, a lot of lingo is thrown around. I mean, in this presentation alone, we heard higher order skills, we heard deeper learning. I've heard this on the road with parents and families as well, and community members. And as you can imagine, that results in a lot of confusion. When I was out speaking with constituents and running consistently, people would ask me what Common Core and Smarter Balance really did. And I will tell you, I was fortunate to participate in a focus group about 6 months ago around messaging this at a state level. Much to my dismay, I was presented several different public information awareness campaigns that were geared at getting the message out, and boy, were they off the mark. And they were geared at getting the message out to educators. And when I asked this highly paid team of consultants where the messaging campaign was for families, they said that was forthcoming. And to me, that's disturbing. Those things should be developed hand in hand when we're talking about how we communicate this well to educators. And I'd like to see some leadership in the school district for doing that, recognizing that we can't wait at a state or a national level for that to occur. I also wanted to just address this idea of the early assessment program measurements and what this means in terms of accurately capturing college and career readiness for the CSU and the community college system. I think, Board Member Cochran was on the mark when she was stating her dismay over the idea that you would have to assess multiple times to measure your readiness for higher education, particularly for various systems of public higher education. Right now, the community college system is in the process of working with K-12 to develop a common definition of college and career readiness. I've been part of those conversations, and I'll be honest, I'm pulling my hair out, that it would be so difficult to develop that common definition. That being said, I know that 70 to 90% of students will leave our K-12 system and enter the doors of a community college or a CSU and assess as needing remedial education in English or math or both. That is astonishing to me. And so my question becomes, how do we use these tests, this sea change, this dramatic shift in the way that we're doing our testing to really institute the appropriate interventions to ensure that we're not leaving students behind, particularly the types of students that quite often fall through the cracks?
So what we've begun doing this year, we are piloting what is called an EAP math course in 2 of our high schools. And this course is designed for students who are not college ready but are on the brink, conditionally ready, to be able to ensure that they are able to earn at least a C or better in the course. And we have an agreement with the the CSU system that if they do receive a grade of C or better in the course, then they will be exempt from taking the required assessments. We do have that for mathematics. We also have it for English language arts. And the goal is to expand that where it's not just a pilot, but as we receive the data in June or July from the state, we're able to see who those students are that are on the brink, on the fence of being ready. And we will then work with the high school principals to tweak their master schedules to be able to create these courses so the students in the fall can enter and they are ready at the end of their senior year to enter college ready.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Certainly.
Have you been in conversation with the local community college presidents or the chancellor of Los Rios Community College District to request that we have a common cut score for college readiness for students who will in large part enter our local community colleges? Because as you know, right now we have hundreds of assessment tools. They vary from campus to campus, district to district. And unfortunately, once a student assesses 3 or 4 levels below college ready, despite having often got a B or an A in the last class that they took before graduating from high school, the likeliness of them ever climbing out is very small.
We share your passion, and that is a key conversation that is taking place as among the 3 institutions as we participate in this collaborative. So that topic has not left the table. We address it every time we meet with Sac City College and Sac State. And yes, we have begun the conversation with Brian King regarding not just Sac City College, but how do we ensure that all of the community colleges within the area and across the state can ensure that we're using the same, if you want to say, same framework and not different assessments being given. So the conversation has begun, and we will continue to press and push the envelope.
Well, please let me know if you need help pushing.
Thank you.
If I can just speak to Member Ryan's first question around the message and making sure that all of our materials are really parent friendly. I couldn't agree more as far as the need to get away from the edu speak that we so often get stuck in our bubble. One of the reasons that's one of the reasons that we use as the sort of baseline for the parent tool, the talking points that we created for schools. We use a document that was created by the state PTA. For that reason, the documents that were created by the state board, while informative, and I'm sure a lot of time went into creating them, were really aimed at educators, and they've got value. But the document we want for parents and for our teachers and principals and working with parents, we want to make sure it's as parent-friendly as possible. So that's a huge focus for us, and certainly always open to feedback on any of the materials we're putting out if you think there's ways, if anyone thinks there's ways that we can make it more accessible.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Wu. And I want to thank my colleagues also for their extremely wonderful questions. But at this time, I want to acknowledge a few people here in our audience that I think deserve some acknowledgement as well, because they've been sitting here listening to all of our questions in your presentation about this, and you really have a stake in this. So starting over here on my right is Ms. Grace Trujillo. She's an LCAP committee, advisory committee member appointed by President Wu. Also, Angie Sutherland, and my very own appointee, Mr. Quentin Foster. You want to wave back there? Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here this evening. They sat here most of our school board meeting, and it shows their dedication to this work that we're doing as a complete district and their seriousness in this LCAP advisory committee that they participate in. So I really want to thank you all very much for being here. So moving on with my my portion of my questions. First of all, I was just talking to somebody the other day, Ms. Olivine, about how I thought that you were super intelligent around the whole area of curriculum. And I stand by it. You know, I've always said that to you. So I really thank you and appreciate that you're here with this district and that you bring this breadth of knowledge to us. So I just want to say that first. But I am concerned, and I wonder about children sending their scores from this testing over to the colleges. I wonder if it will at one point in the future make an impact as to whether they will get into the college of their choice because they didn't test so well. So, I do wonder about that, how this is going to look in the future. I know that you have articulated that you are working with our community college, a couple of them, and that you're going to expand out, and with one of our universities here in town. But that doesn't include other students who are seeking to go maybe UCLA, a different Harvard or Yale or anything like that, and would it decrease their chance of getting into one of those types of colleges? So I just want to wonder that out loud and maybe put it on your radar, and maybe next time we have a conversation, you can come back to me with some more information, because I know you'll probably look it up. As far as the results reporting, I just came back from that training in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, the person who did the training on the different types of testing and the results of versus under NCLB before we went into Common Core state standards, they reflected back on the different types of testings that have been in place for past 30, 40 years. And although the trend goes this way, it doesn't really go this way. It goes kind of this way. Every time you develop a testing system, it just notches up just a little bit. And so what they did is they tested. They showed us the testing scores from, I guess it was 2000 to 1990. I think it was when the first testing system came into place, the new one. And they showed an improvement over time. So when they first tested these kids, they were at like 20% of being proficient. And then over time, the mark just went higher and higher. Are we expecting that children are going to be at the low scale of this spectrum with this new testing system?
The only data that we have available are the data that was provided by us back from the field test. And I don't know if you've seen those, but they were pretty transparent and across the grade levels 3 through 8 in ELA. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think we took them out of one of our slides, but I think between 30 and 40%, or more around 30% of the students actually met that level of proficiency. So those are the estimates that we could expect based on the field test results.
So I have to wonder again out loud about these tests, just in general. CST came along and children were they tested, they were at the low end of the spectrum. And then as teachers became more and more aware of the types of questions that would be asked, then they started, developing teaching methods to prepare the child to take the test to do a little better on it. This one is computerized, it's computer generated. I can't help but wonder again, in a matter of so many years, will that same type of activity be present? And children are just really just in the whole system of taking a test just to take a test because we need numbers to show that children are progressing. Because as a parent, the test shows me no grade. It shows me no progress. When you do these generalized tests, what I want to know is my child coming to school every day? Are they progressing in the subject matter that is being taught in the classroom that day, that week, that month, that semester? Because that's more of a reality to me than a standardized test. So I don't know how you want to answer that question, but I mean, I just have to wonder about these tests and how accurate they would be, even today or even in the future.
Well, the tests themselves, in terms of the software, the functionality, are as precise as they can be using the technology and algorithms that are available. In terms of whether or not we'll get to the point where students learn how to master it, that really depends on how well, the state and the consortium keep the item pool up to bank and, freshly developed with more challenging items or that matches the Common Core as it, really, as the depth and breadth of the Common Core really expands. So I can't really, tell you where, if we'll get to that point, but with the summative assessments, they are really only a piece of the student's academic profile. And I know Dr. Roberts could certainly probably speak to our focus on formative assessment and how that is used daily in the classroom by teacher to measure the progress of students on those day-to-day activities. And I think that is really where our focus is in professional learning and working with teachers and progress monitoring with students.
Well, the other piece to that is that parents were using API, for example, in terms of where they want to enroll their children. Now this is going to be a new thing for them to learn. The higher the score, the better. And now I want my child to go to that particular school because that school has higher test scores. Therefore, my child will score higher. Right? I just don't believe in this whole system of testing, standardized test in general. I just have to, just put that out there because I just think it's just another thing that just marks a level of achievement or non-achievement. And children can definitely, because of their lack of ability of navigating a technology tool, their lack of ability to read and understand. I know that I look at things differently on a piece of paper than I do on the computer screen, so that the ability to synthesize that type of information and input and how it's coming to them is going to be completely different. If they're learning this way in the classroom and they're testing this way, it's not equal, it's not matched. So, it's just a whole thing that we're not even aware of how this is going to affect children and the test scores, and then the behaviors of outside of that, the behaviors of people who want to have their children in these high rigor or high achieving schools. So I just kind of wanted that as a commentary, not as something to answer to. In terms of communication and outreach, the Common Core state standards from the federal level was built around parent engagement and involvement. It does concern me that we had state level people focused on educators. Mr. Ross, it has been my concern for years now up here that we're not doing the outreach that we need. And I can use this as a clear example. On April 1st, I had a meeting with some parents that their children are or have been designated as English language learners. And they wanted to know, how do they get involved in this process? How do they understand LCFF and LCAT? How do they understand how this is going to affect their child? And I simply asked them, have you not been attending our meetings with the district? He said, no, we weren't even aware of these meetings. So whatever outreach we're doing is not effective. Because if they're not attending these meetings, they're not understanding. Maybe they're just not understanding how the importance of this. And so the message needs to change. It needs to be different. It needs to resonate with our parents. Because they're coming to me asking, how do we get involved? But we've had these meetings. I asked them that if we put a meeting together, that they also had to take the responsibility then to tell their neighbors, tell their parents at the schools, tell everyone that they know that these meetings are being put on and how the level of importance that these meetings are to their child's success. So I think, again, going, to still some comments from a couple of board members that I've heard outside of here, but using us board members as ambassadors as well to help get the word out, because this shouldn't be a burden that this district should take on by itself. We need to take the responsibility of some of that burden. We had Mr. Carl Pinkston up here talking about, hey, come to us. We can help get the word out. I think we could do a much better job at utilizing our community partners in helping to get the word out. We all stand here ready. This test is here. It's not even around the corner anymore. It's here. And parents need to know and understand what the implications are and the seriousness of this. And, Member Cochran and her experience in the classroom is valuable. Other teachers need to understand this as well. So so I don't know what your plan is. What is the outlook on how to get more parents to attend these meetings? I know it's not a hot topic that they want to attend, like bullying or anything else like that.
Of course. Well, I
Yeah.
think this is, it's a process, and like we've talked about with the engagement around the LCAP over the last couple of years, we want to be creative and look for new opportunities and always learn from what's working and what's not working as well. I think an example of that is how we've really adjusted the strategy with regards to the Common Core and engaging with parents. Last year, Dr. Roberts' team hosted a series of 56 different forums around the district, and I don't think any of them were at Cerna Center. They were at schools in different areas, and a series for math and a series for ELA in each area. Very rich, very content, a lot of great content for parents, but it was a lot. And what we're learning, I think how we've adjusted this year is really the focus is on meeting parents where they are. And really, again, as I mentioned, I think earlier in the presentation, giving principals and teachers tools to have these conversations in the context of meetings they're already having with parents at their school sites, so that it's not another meeting a parent has to come to. We of course still have room to grow. We are welcome support of board members and community partners and anyone who wants to help get the word out. Tuma was not here, but her team has been working really closely with the academic office on this. They just recently, the Parent Information Exchange, I'm not sure if it was the one you were at, Member Ryan, but they just had one of their meetings on this topic. And we're using every opportunity where we know we already have parents engaged, we already have them at the table to have these important conversations. So, yes, we hear you, we agree. We're always working to improve that area. We can never do enough. And always appreciate the input and support from the board and all of our community partners.
Can I ask if you would be open to a suggestion to allow for example, because he's here, the Black Parallel School Board to come in and help you develop the presentation to talk to parents? Because I'll just put it plainly, he's got his pulse on a particular community, and he knows exactly how they receive and kind of process information. And so if you're going to come in with a very academic type of language or an academic proposal, and you think you've, watered it down, it may not be something that could still be processed and understood by any particular group. Would you be open, for example, to have maybe a member of the Black Parallel School Board and come in and help you develop a presentation?
We're open to anyone who wants to help in any capacity. A big part of communications and in parent engagement is about adjusting your message to your audience. And so I don't think that there is a boilerplate presentation necessarily that we use with every group. The conversation I'm sure that the Family and Community Engagement Office has with the Parent Information Exchange may be different from a presentation for a community partner and different than what's happening at school sites. And even individual school sites are having different conversations with their parents because it's really all about meeting people where they are. We are utilizing our partners. I know the academic office has worked really closely with Carrie and Lisa and the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project over the past couple of years to utilize home visits as another entry point into this conversation for parents. It illustrates, I think the success of that program in so many ways illustrates both the opportunity and the challenges in the work in really engaging with parents, right? Because the one-on-one conversations take longer and it takes more time and you reach people slower, but it's much deeper connection on the content, whatever the content may be. I think to answer your question, absolutely, we're open to feedback from anybody. I know that the Parent Engagement Office has been, working really closely with all of our groups, and I'm sure they would welcome Carl or anybody to weigh in.
I just gave him the thumbs up, like, hey, there's an open door, Mr. Pinkston. Thank you. And by the way, full disclosure, he didn't ask for that. I just thought, hey, you know what? Why not go to the people who actually talk to the people, right? My last thing is, while I was in Washington, D.C., I picked up these Smarter Balanced nice flyers. They're available on the smarterbalance.org. You guys can have them. I don't need them. But these are in Spanish, and they have these nice things available for all school districts for free. You just download them, and then when you go to meetings or you want to have principals send out information, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already here. And I don't know how many other languages they have it translated into. But again, I'm all about looking for already done resources that are free. So I give these to you. All right.
Tommy?
First, I'd like to start off by saying thank you for the presentation. It's really nice. And thank you for answering all of our comments and questions. I also like to thank my fellow board members for asking so many comments and questions. I like hearing them. I have quite a few comments and questions myself. I think I'll start with my questions. For the EAP, are we allowed to see our test scores before we send them in, or is it just right after the test?
Prior to your knowledge of the score.
So we do get to see the test results?
No, it's prior to your knowledge of the
Oh,
score.
okay.
So as you complete the test before you end, you'll be asked whether or not you want the scores to be sent.
And then I know how you said that there's no time limit per question, like each, okay, but like it's a time limit overall. And just touching base on the usage of computers, not just that people don't know how to use computers in general, but even the ones that do. I know little kids, like, 3rd through 8th grade, they don't know how to type. So I think there'll definitely be a problem of how long it would take to write like a 3-paragraph essay only using 2 fingers and trying to figure out like the structure of the keyboard. I think that would take some time. And then it wasn't written down, but I distinctly remember you mentioning something about having audio along with text, or just audio, or
Embedded supports for students on individualized education plans or 504s to allow for text-to-speech so that the question or the directions can be read to them. And that's also available for Braille students who maybe don't necessarily know Braille yet.
Oh, and then you also mentioned how the test adapts to your answers. You end up answering all of the questions overall. Everyone answers the same questions, is that correct?
Not necessarily.
The other things, remember Gustavo mentioned a few things about like cultural differences of, this is like a problem I see in testing in general is, one example I like to use a lot when I'm mentioning this to my English teacher is on many tests they'll ask like, what is red symbolized as? And in many cultures, especially the Western culture, it symbolizes things like anger, fury, love, danger. But I know many Eastern cultures, it states that that red is a symbol of good luck and good fortune. And I always viewed that, I always get those test questions wrong when they ask things like that because it's just so different. And, here in California, here in Sacramento, in the United States, we have such a diverse culture. It's really hard to measure, like, your understanding of literature in that way. That always bothered me. The things that Gabe said, I'm pretty sure Superintendent Bonda said this before, too, is that we don't have any data for this testing yet. It's a fresh start. It's something that's completely experimental, and I'm really interested in what this is going to see in the future and how this is going to go since we haven't done this before. All right, and more for my comments. Testing. Oh, how I love testing so much. I have test anxiety too, just as remember Gustavo said. I really don't like testing, but I did take a practice test of this last year along with the rest of my classmates, the year of 2016, and I remember everyone's like, my English teacher says, "Okay, we're gonna go to the computer lab to go take a test," and then all the cheers die down and we all fall quiet and line up to go to the library. And we were excited that everything was on computers and everything was technological because that's new, that's different, that's cool. But then we noticed how everything was much more difficult. It wasn't multiple choice. It was very different, unlike any test I've ever taken before. And that scared me. This new testing is very scary, and especially with 11th graders, since we've grown up all of our life having this one type of test, and we were taught to the test and how to take it, how it was structured, and we got used to that. And so taking this standard balancing testing is very frustrating. It's weird, it's foreign, we don't like it. It's just so different, and many of my classmates were very resistant to it. Some of them just didn't even really bother actually taking the test. They just kind of blew it off, to be honest. But I'm sure with time, especially with a lot of the younger students, they might adapt to it much more and might be more accepting to it. But it's so different. It's very hard to grasp the concept of.
Member Ryan?
Well, I just wanted to commend Board Member Thado for bringing up so many on-point areas of discussion. I think your student perspective and your student voice is invaluable as it is to have Member Cochran and her perspective as a teacher on the board. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I want to point out, just one thing that she said, which was, they went in with this new way of testing, never having done this testing before, and immediately ended up feeling defeated. Now, we're hoping, right, that the test preparation and having tested this before will change that dynamic. But quite often students enter tests not understanding how high stakes they are. And so when you're talking about taking a test in 11th grade that will, in fact, deem you college ready or not, that is a high stakes test. And so this whole other level of outreach is how do we communicate this testing to students in a way that feels less scary, that is empowering and part of really what they see, a tool in their toolbox that can be utilized to help them navigate that final year or two of school. But I think this other point that she brought up about coming in 11th grade, having learned one way all up until that point and then being asked to all of a sudden adopt this new way of thinking is very true. And it's just the reality of Common Core. I mean, we can't ask you for an answer there. I mean, we have students who are going to come in and have to adapt, and that's the reality that we're working with.
Member Cochran.
This is just one question. When the students reach the point where they decide whether to send that or not, have teachers been informed, instructed, or prepped to say something to them? Inform them what happens when that button is pushed, or talk to them about the results of sending that?
I'm sure that will continue to be part of our larger communication plan and work and outreach with staff. But for the meantime, we have equipped our principals and our teachers and our site coordinators with the information that has been released by the CSU and the CDE about the EAP and what it means to release your score and explain to provide some information to explain to students about that component of the test.
I'm just going to follow up with that. I understand your question, but my mind didn't grasp it, whether that was yes or no, or is a teacher going to be able to say something? Have they been instructed on how to handle that? I know the information is provided, but what does the teacher in the classroom do?
Well, the instruction for getting to that point in the test is included in the directions for administration, so it's part of the test. But in terms of helping to provide staff with information about what that means, the CSU and the CDE have just released a general letter to the field, which is us, that we passed on as a piece of that information to go out in that conversation.
Passed on to the principals?
Yes, to the principal and the site coordinator so that they have that information to have discussions with staff.
So there's no district policy on how to help the children make that decision?
Not at present. This is new for us, and we just got some letter and information that we could use to feed into our forming communication plans and outreach about the assessment.
Thank you for your answer.
So I know that this presentation was on the state assessments, and I want to thank you for that. One comment that I have is that we're working very hard to help our students by engaging many of our parents now through programs such as the Academic Parent-Teacher Team Building. And because Common Core is new for all of us, and many of the parents that we engage, particularly in deeply underserved communities, barely have a basic education, Common Core is even more difficult to grasp. And I'm hoping that we're reaching out to teach our parents what it is that we're teaching our children so that they can continue to assist us in assisting their children to succeed. That's just a comment I wanted to make. Thank you. Thank you for everybody's patience. Moving on to item 11.3, facilities update. Ms. Allen.
There might be a public comment for him.
It's for Mr. Ross to tell me. That's after the presentation.
A public comment on the facilities item? Do you oh, hold them? Okay. We'll hold them until after the presentation.
I want to hear the presentation first. You know, sitting here will do that to you. I know how you feel the power while you were here. Ms. Allen.
All right, good evening again. Short update tonight on one project in particular and just another couple of items that I wanted to talk to you about. Tonight we're going to talk about California Middle School, which is a gym renovation and an addition. Little status update on our fire alarm upgrades, and then a plug for Project Green. So the scope for the gym renovation includes about a 2,550 square foot addition to the existing gym, a new HVAC throughout, new bleachers, new coaches' restrooms, a new roof, a new floor. We have some ADA upgrades. Again, those are Americans with Disabilities Act upgrades as required by our state architect. We have an architect's fixed fee of about $250,000. We opened bids in January. Landmark Construction was the low bidder. The board awarded the contract in February. Construction costs right now are budgeted at 2.7, and our total project cost, which is both hard and soft costs, is roughly $3.1 million. And we hope to be complete in October. So we took some pictures. This is obviously the front of the school. Here's an aerial view of the gym building. So what will look different when we're done with it, obviously, is HVAC units on the top. Existing exterior, you can see the fence for mobilization has been put up, and work has actually started on the interior. Now this floor will be replaced. This is demolition starting already. Obviously a lot more demolition. A lot of wires hanging. Hopefully those are not hot right now. Kind of a blurry picture, but again, more demolition happening. And Ms. Egan has been wonderful to work with. The staff has been very, very accommodating to us. They've moved their locker rooms to another part of the campus, and they're using other gyms in the area, all in excitement and preparation of getting a brand new gym. So while a little bit maybe stressful right now to go through this, the end result will be a wonderful building that they can be very, very proud of. The fire alarm upgrades, we are required to do these on 42 sites. It's mandated by our local fire authority. So this is separate from the state architect. This is actually local fire authority. We have to test every site in the district, which is 111 sites. So it's not just our active school sites. It's actually everything that we own, including this building here. We have to do that every year. The cost to do that is about $500,000 a year. It's very, very labor intensive. We contracted it out this last year. This coming year, we do have 4 fire alarm technicians. We're hoping that maybe we can at least do some of the sites ourselves and possibly have to contract out part of it just to meet the guidelines of the fire department. We did cut a deal with them, basically, that allowed us to do full run tests on half the sites and it's a different kind of test, which is less labor intensive on the other half. And then the next year we would switch and do them that way. So they've been very cooperative with us, especially with the number of sites that we have to do every year. So far, completed projects, we've upgraded 11 panels, which sounds simple, but it's actually fairly comprehensive. The full fire alarm upgrades include, we have 2 sites that are complete, the 5 sites that are in construction. We have 5 sites in various stages ready for construction or at DSA, because all of these projects do have to go through DSA. And then the remaining 20 sites will be completed between 2016 and 2017. So Project Green, I wanted to give another little shout out again because we've got our competition presentations coming up in 2 weeks. For this year, we have 28 sites participating, which is up from 19 last year. So it's the popularity of this program has really taken off. As you can see, 16 elementaries, 1 K-8, 4 middle, 6 high school, and 1 adult ed. Earth Day is April 22nd. At 4:30 at Camellia Basic, we'll be having our presentations. President Wu and Superintendent Bonda be speaking there, and then obviously inviting the rest of the board to attend. Should be a lot of fun. We have our esteemed panel of judges representing the community at large, and kids do a really good job. We got a preview today of what one of the sites was coming up with, so it's really a fun time to watch them do their presentation and have them answer the questions of the judges and talk about how they came up with their pricing and how they did their audits. And it's kind of a neat thing to do. If you haven't seen it yet, we would love to have you there. So. And then I was asked by Member Hanson to give a little bit of an update on William Land. At his request, I did contact an architect that has done some work with us in the past and met them at the site a couple of weeks ago, and they will be preparing some modest renderings of what a two-story building might look like on that campus, mostly just to kind of give us some scale and size and what that might look like if the district decides to move forward with some kind of a project at that site. So I would expect to have those within a couple of weeks.
Mr. Ross.
We have one comment on 11.3 from Enoch Young.
My name is Enoch Young. I am the head of this PTA subcommittee on overcrowding at William Land Elementary. I just wanted to just express to the school board that we appreciate the work that district staff, as well as with Member Jay Hanson, that we've been working together to figure out solutions to the overcrowding situation at William Land. We did want to bring up that we just feel that we need a stronger sense of urgency to figuring out a solution for William Land prior to the end of this school year, because we just feel that given that there's one more academic year before the school is at full capacity, we really feel like a solution needs to be figured out very soon. I appreciate the fact that Ms. Kathy Allen has brought in an architect to look at the site. But in addition to the two-story rendering, one of the things that the subcommittee had also recommended was exploring what we could do to possibly expand the multi-purpose room and also see what we can do to try to better improve usage of the blacktop space for the students. So there are just a variety of items that we want to be able to work with the district on to kind of seek out solutions, and so we just really appreciate urgency and attention to the details, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Member Rodriguez, then Member Hanson.
Thank you, President Wu. I'm going to ask a question here. William Land was not overcrowded before we closed schools. And the discussion that's taking place in that area is quite possibly reopening a school that we had closed. So then why are we looking at putting buildings somewhere where we might reopen up a school site, which would then alleviate some of this overcrowding issue? It doesn't make sense. I mean, if the issue is, or if the desire is to reopen a school site, then why are we spending money on renderings?
Good question. And obviously, we've had these discussions before. We've actually spent quite a bit of time analyzing all the possible scenarios, which would include potentially opening up Washington in some manner. We're not spending a lot, just a couple of $1,000s, but all options were to be explored. So in addition to looking at what a two-story building would look like, we've had community meetings with Member Hanson and Council Member Hanson about reopening Washington and what that would look like and what the community wants. So a lot of things are moving concurrently. We're not here to advocate necessarily one side or the other at this point. We're just bringing information to the board for you guys to take a look at.
Take a little deference with you saying we're not spending a lot, only a couple of $1,000, because I have a high school in my area, Luther Burbank, that desperately needs a new pump in order to save some money in the long run. And if we're not spending $2,000 on replacing that pump, yet we're spending $2,000 on an artist rendering, it doesn't make sense. I mean, this board needs to make a decision, reopen that school, and start addressing the overcrowding issue. But at the same time, we really need to have these discussions around what schools are going to look like when we start reducing classroom sizes, and before we start spending more money on putting extra buildings on these sites, because in 15, 20 years, we're going to be in the same spot. Oh, that school is under-enrolled because we have more space that is available at that school site because we went and spent money where we shouldn't have, when we should have reopened a school site that we had closed. Same issue with Maple. I mean, it's just a matter of time before Hollywood Park becomes over capacity and we're going to start looking at putting more portables out there. I mean, it's the same issue we're going to experience everywhere else because, again, classroom sizes are going to hit us. So I think take a breath, take a step back, and start looking at what's down in the future and start being proactive and stop spending our precious bond dollar monies on these projects where it could really go to schools like Woodbine Elementary. We still don't have wireless in that whole entire school, half the school. I mean, we still need a lot of repairs at that school. It's been very under maintained. And we send kids to that school every day. And we expect them to be higher achievers. You know, let's start making better decisions, everyone.
Well, and I just want to remind Board Member Rodriguez that staff is not acting independently to do this work. They're acting under direction of some board members. So Kathy's responding to requests, to some of the direction that's coming from some of the board members. I think that you're right in terms of we have to take a look at the entire picture when we look at our facilities, but those are discussions that are still to be had amongst the board here to see what direction we want to go. And then as far as some facilities are still lagging and not having some things such as perhaps wireless, I think it highlights the fact that, you know, we know that while we're appreciative of what the voters of Sacramento were able to do in support of this bond, we know that it doesn't go far enough to address all of the issues. So we're trying to get to them, we're trying to do them, but we know ultimately, even at the end of this particular bond, we're still going to have schools that don't have some amenities, or not amenities, but some things such as wireless or upgrades on their facilities.
Well, to respond to that, I'm deeply hurt and concerned now because I've been asking for questions to be answered about Maple Elementary where I had to do my own research. I know that there's a school out there right now that doesn't have clear and pleasant drinking water, and we're still not addressing that. I mean, it's like, which board member are you going to really pay attention to and which of us are you not? I mean, if I have to do I have to sit in your office in order to get attention for my schools? If that's the case, let me know. I just really take deference to that comment. Because if it's coming down to somebody spends more time in your office and you're going to give that project more attention than to the children who are the most underprivileged in our community. And they desire so much more and they deserve so much more. They don't have these extra resources at their house. And yet we just had a whole conversation up here about children who are not exposed to technology and they're taking a test. I mean, come on, let's really just take an evaluation of what we're saying up here.
Member Hanson.
Thank you very much for helping move this along. We should be lucky to have every school in our district like William Land. Let me remind folks, this is a school that's growing by 30 students every year, and it has for the last 4 years in a row. That school all by itself is generating, well over 100,000 additional new dollars. And if we can move to make our academic programs is dynamic. So what we have there, that's what we're going to do to be able to provide resources for all the schools that are necessary to have those. I hope that we're able to move on Washington as well. The decision has not been made. That's obviously going to be a board decision, and with everyone participating, including the community. So I think it's critical that we look at all our options at William Land, and if it's expanding, that's the smallest elementary school campus in the entire district. So let's just make sure we have all the facts about the school there. So I think it's important to do that. It's the only Central City elementary school that's open at this time. Obviously very impacted, and a very engaged PTA, which I appreciate all their support and work on this. I'll look forward to seeing the results of that. I think it'd be great to have Enoch and the other folks with your PTA group, see if we can get a meeting together to take a look at that and continue to give some feedback to you and the superintendent and the other board members that are involved in this, and see if we can figure out something so that the school is at absolute max capacity next year, as you're well aware. That's why we're doing this, and we've seen it coming for a couple of years, and we're lucky that we have a program that's continuing to grow by an extra grade level every single year because the Mandarin Immersion program is so popular. I think that we've got some good options on the table, and we just want to make sure we keep this moving forward. And if we're able to open Washington, we're certainly not going to force families to leave William Land if they want to stay there. We've never done that, and I wouldn't expect that anyone on this dais would recommend that. However, if there's new element, if we change the boundary lines and there's new students that would be, beginning students at William Land that might be drawn into Washington, then that would be the way to grow that school, as well as making Washington a destination school that parents who are working downtown choose to bring their students there. So that may or may not happen. We can't afford to wait to figure out what's going to happen with Washington and impact the hundreds and hundreds of students at one of the most successful elementary school programs we have by dilly-dallying, and that's why we have to move forward, and why a small expenditure of money, I think, is a very wise investment considering how much additional dollars that school is bringing to the whole district. So we're making a small investment to keep that generator going. So I'd like to work with you and the community at William Land to see if we can set up a meeting when that information is back. Maybe we could do something at the school, and I've certainly invited all my board members to come take a look at that and see that we can move forward on that. So thank you for addressing that. I appreciate it.
Member Cochran?
Thank you, President. This is not specifically directed to the issue that you're presenting. Brief comment, and Dr. Roberts, you can take note too. During the last presentation, we were told that hotspots and Wi-Fi technology are strong, and yet we've heard in this presentation that it's a possibility that some schools are spotty. So I think that there's a disconnect in the commenting, and I really want to make sure that Wi-Fi and the ability to do the testing properly is ensured.
Thank you, Member Cochran. So one last comment. Ms. Allen, I don't know if Superintendent had the opportunity to share this with you, but Superintendent, Vice President Pritchett and myself had our quarterly 2x2 meeting with the City of Rancho Cordova on Tuesday. They have some Measure H money. So if there are any one-time projects that we're looking at, may not necessarily be facility projects, but if you're contemplating cameras or security for the schools, they are entertaining our request for one-time funds to help them identify ways to spend money, and they're entertaining that to be spent at our schools. They threw out ideas like band uniforms and things like that, but since you were talking about facilities, if you have any projects on the horizon, they would entertain those and help us fund it, which would give us free up money for other projects as well.
Thank you.
This year they're contemplating spending $7 million, although not all $7 million will be spent on Sac City Unified Schools within Rancho Cordova, but at least it's a start. Thank you. Moving on then to Item 12.0, business and financial information reports. We received the business and financial information enrollment attendance report for month 6 ending February 20th. Item 13, future board meeting dates and locations, April 23rd, 2015, 4:30 closed session, 6:30 open session here at the Cerner Center, as well as May 7th, 4:30 closed session, 6:30 open session at the Cerner Center. With that, item 14, adjournment, I will entertain a motion. Okay, Member Saito, do I have a second? I have a second by second Vice President Hansen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Good night, everybody.